Chapter 1347. A faintly discernible ripple surrounded Suyu, and it was extremely obscure. At this moment, the Grand Wizard noticed the existence of the invisible wave. He stared at it and said in surprise, "Wizard power? You are?" Suyu's eyes shone brightly. With a solemn expression, he said calmly, "I am a wizard under the Holy Sun, Hei Shan." The Grand Wizard and the two wizards looked at him suspiciously. Yongye Wuming, after a moment of surprise, understood Suyu's intention. He thought to himself, "This boy is quite quick-witted. His reaction is so fast." Yongye Wuming did not doubt Suyu's identity. If Suyu was a disciple of the Moonwatch sect, Shangguan Feiyu would have noticed it. Obviously, Suyu had used some method to disguise himself as a disciple of the Moonwatch sect. The Grand Wizard's eyes narrowed slightly. The Holy Sun is far away in the Lost Nation. When did he send someone here? Capture him and hand him over to the little Holy Maiden. Seeing that the two were aggressive, Suyu remained calm and said leisurely, "The black water covers the green mountains, and the silver river illuminates the white sun." Hearing this, the Grand Wizard still had doubt. "The slogan is correct, but I don't know how many sorcery you have learned." Suyu smiled and looked at the two wizards, who were stunned. He muttered an obscure spell. The invisible wave swept over, and the two wizards fell into a dream. They were confused on the spot. The curse of incubus. The Grand Wizard nodded slowly, confirming Suyu's identity. It is indeed the 9 sorcery of the Holy Sun. Only the Holy Sun can learn it. Unlike the divine path, the practice of sorcery required faith. Some powerful sorcery could only be comprehended through faith in the wizard ancestor. So far, in the Moonwatch sect, the only person who had comprehended the curse of incubus was the Holy Sun. If others wanted to learn this sorcery, they could only be taught by the Holy Sun. Therefore, Suyu's identity was beyond doubt. Suyu smiled. Of course, the slogan was obtained from the memory of the witch. As for the curse of incubus, the wizard tribe probably would not understand that there was a magical power in the world that could imitate the power of blood. "Greetings, Grand Wizard. I have come to see the Holy Maiden on the order of Lord Wutong." Suyu had learned from the conversation of the 4 Grand Wizards that the Moonwatch sect was not united. The saint and the saintess seemed to be in a competitive relationship. Among the disciples of the Moonwatch sect who entered the relic this time, the saint was in charge of the devil area, while the saint was in charge of the holy area. The Grand Warlock in front of him should be an expert of the saintess faction. The saintess has gone to hunt down 2 level 3 ancient god realm god level creatures. If there's anything important, I can pass it on to you. The Grand Wizard naturally revealed a cold expression. Suyu was put in a difficult position. This is related to the failure of the Myriad Bone Mountain. Since the Saint Lady is not here, I will go back and report to her. Wait. The Grand Wizard's eyes flashed. You didn't manage to retrieve the remains of the 10,000 deities. Suyu nodded and cupped his fist. Farewell. Wait. The Grand Wizard's expression softened. Since you're here, you might as well rest in the central area until the ruins are over. Besides, I think the Holy Maiden will be back soon. This was exactly what Suyu wanted, and he said, "All right." The Grand Shaman said, "May I know the specifics of the Myriad Bone Mountain first?" He knew very well that the remains of the 10,000 deities were highly valued by the Moonwatch sect leader, so he did not hesitate to hand them over to the Holy Sun. However, the Holy Sun was in seclusion, so it was up to the wizards under his command to handle it. If this task failed, the blow to the Holy Sun could not be underestimated. Therefore, his attitude changed drastically, and he became enthusiastic about Suyu. It's better to wait for the Saint Lady to come back and tell her in person. There are some secrets that only the Saint Lady knows. The Grand Wizard was slightly disappointed, but it was not appropriate to ask further. He nodded and said, "Well, come with me." At this time, the 2 wizards said, "My lord, what should we do with this creature?" The Grand Wizard looked at Yongye Wuming, then at Su Yu, and frowned slightly, meaning to ask why Su Yu was with the people of the Imperial Sacred Faction. Su Yu had an idea and said, "I met this person on the way. He was lost in the fog and mistook me for a creature of the ancient god realm, so I played along and lured him back." "I see." The Grand Wizard did not suspect anything. After thinking for a while, he said, "Since you caught him, you can deal with him. If you need someone to help you, you can find me at any time." With that, he waved his hand and threw Yongye Wuming to Su Yu. Su Yu supported his back and said with a smile, "Thank you, Grand Wizard." Under the leadership of the Grand Wizard, they walked forward 10,000 feet. The fog here was extremely thin, almost as if there was nothing there. Visible to the naked eye, there was a huge abyss pit on the ground, and hundreds of wizards were casting spells and digging to the bottom of the abyss. Su Yu was led across the edge of the abyss and quietly glanced at the bottom of the abyss. His eyes flashed with a pale color, and he saw through the bottom of the abyss. After taking a look, Su Yu was slightly surprised. Buried at the bottom of the abyss was a crystal ball with a diameter of 1,000,000 feet. The ball lay very calmly at the bottom of the abyss, but Su Yu had the illusion of facing the World Annihilation Dragon, and his heart was anxious. Could this be the rumored creation-level civilization weapon buried in the depths of the sacred realm? Su Yu took a breath. Although he knew that this thing would be extremely powerful, the breath it emitted was comparable to the World Annihilation Dragon. If it was activated, how powerful would it be? After a hurried glance, Su Yu left and was led to a resting place. "You can rest here and wait for the Holy Maiden to return. She will summon you as soon as possible," the Grand Wizard said. Su Yu nodded and entered a temporary resting room that had been dug out. After entering the room and closing the stone door, Su Yu flicked his finger, and a wisp of wizard power dissolved Yongye Wuming's spell. Regaining his freedom, Yongye Wuming opened his mouth and laughed loudly. He patted Su Yu on the shoulder and said, "You are really a talent. You managed to sneak into the Moonwatch sect. It would be a pity for a talent like you to work for Shangguan Feiyu. From now on, follow me, and I will ensure that you will have a good career and a high position." Su Yu rolled his eyes. With an outstanding peer like Yongye Wuming, how much future could he have in the Empire of Darkness? What's more, Yongye Jiang had a lifespan of tens of millions of years. During this period, many princes had been born, and they were not the only ones. "Thank you very much." Su Yu smiled faintly, and his eyes were full of thought. "What else are you thinking about? Hurry up and use your identity to bring me closer to the stairs, and then take the opportunity to escape from the ruins. When the monster Holy Maiden comes back, you will be exposed," Yongye Wuming urged. Su Yu shook his head solemnly. "Don't worry. I am pretending to be the Holy Sun's man. As the Grand Wizard under the Holy Maiden, there is no reason for him not to be wary of me. If I am not mistaken, there are strong men secretly watching us. I am afraid that we will be captured on the spot before we can successfully climb the stairs." Yongye Wuming was surprised. He tried to explore secretly, and his heart tightened. As expected, he sensed a faintly discernible aura lingering nearby. "What should we do? Once the Holy Maiden comes back, we will all be finished." Su Yu looked calm. "So we need to think about it carefully. You wait for me, and I will be back soon." After saying that, Su Yu disappeared on the spot, even hiding his breath. Yongye Wuming was taken aback. He found that he could not feel any breath from Su Yu. The door of the secret chamber opened for a moment, then closed immediately, and there was no more sound. Somewhere outside the door, a wizard stared at the stone door and was surprised. "Why do I feel something coming out?" Chapter 1348. He had no intention of fighting for this thing. Obviously, this was something that he could not touch at the moment. Not to mention that there were hundreds of wizards present, whether Su Yu could leave this place alive. Even if he escaped with this thing, once the slightest trace of this thing was exposed, Su Yu's identity would be exposed, and he would be hunted down by the entire ancient god realm and the Moonwatch sect. At that time, Suyu would really have no way out. His current purpose was very simple. He wanted to create some chaos in this creation-level civilization weapon and attract the attention of the wizard. In this way, Suyu could successfully climb the stairs and teleport out of the ruins. Suyu quickly flew to the bottom of the abyss and looked at the huge crystal ball at close range. He felt the terrible power contained in the crystal ball. After a long moment of contemplation, Suyu opened his transparent eyes and looked into the crystal ball. Just for a moment, Suyu immediately retracted his gaze, his face showing a painful expression. His eyes were completely red, and there seemed to be flames burning faintly within them. This crystal ball, could it be? Suyu endured the pain and looked surprised. Suyu looked at the four walls of the abyss. After thinking for a long time, he took out a golden flames forbidden wood bead and shot it at the stone wall. Poof! The golden flames forbidden wood fell into the depths of the stone wall, smashing a deep hole. In the depths of the seemingly ordinary stone wall, there was an inexplicable movement. A sense of extreme danger surged into Suyu's heart. Suyu had no time to take back the golden flames forbidden wood bead. He decisively left the abyss and went straight to the top of the abyss. Almost as soon as his front foot left, a white cold mist suddenly shot out from the hole. The coldness of the cold mist was something Suyu had never seen before. The entire bottom of the abyss, except where the crystal ball was frozen into powder, including Suyu's golden flames forbidden wood bead. The amazing cold rushed from the bottom of the abyss straight to the sky. Everything along the way turned into ice. The hundreds of wizards who were digging were shocked and fled in a hurry. Crack! Crack! The cold rushed out of the abyss and continued to spread in all directions. The nearby wizards fled in all directions in horror, causing chaos. In the blink of an eye, the center of the sanctuary was covered with ice. If one looked from above the sanctuary, one could see that 1/10 of the area of the sanctuary had become a world of ice. What's going on? The great shaman was flustered and exasperated, standing in the air, looking at the cold air that was still spreading. He roared and shouted. The fleeing sorcerers gathered together in fear. If they were any slower, they would have been frozen to death. Under the interrogation of the Grand Sorcerer, the hundreds of sorcerers told him what had happened in confusion, unable to grasp the main points. The Grand Wizard's expression was extremely gloomy. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and break the ice. If you delay the Holy Maiden's important matter, I'll teach you a lesson. Hundreds of wizards flew down and started digging the frozen abyss again. However, what troubled them was that the hardness of the ice was simply unimaginable. Even with the combined efforts of over 100 deities, they were only able to break through 1,000 feet of the ice. It would take at least a month to completely excavate it. There was less than a month left before the relic opened. Just as he was in a dilemma, a powerful aura suddenly descended nearby. A sweet-sounding and dignified voice floated over from the clouds. Out of the way! Greetings, Saintess. The sorcerers retreated with mixed feelings. At that moment, a ripple visible to the naked eye penetrated the sky and landed on the earth. The entire sanctuary trembled fiercely, scattering the mist for hundreds of millions of miles. Countless lost people who coveted it fled in panic. The frozen ice was cracked layer by layer. Under the ripple, it shattered into ice chips, then melted into water vapor and dissipated into nothingness. In an instant, all the ice was swept away. Suyu was secretly shocked. Such a terrible blow was comparable to that of the first prince of the demon dimension. No, it was even more terrible than the first prince. Suddenly, Suyu noticed the gaze cast from the sky and immediately fled to the resting room. He immediately cast the divine path of camouflage and transformed into the appearance of Gang Dalei. The gaze seemed to have noticed something. It glanced at the resting room where Suyu was and retracted indifferently. Swish, white clouds gathered in the sky, forming a rotating vortex. In the vortex, the figure of a 15 or 16-year-old girl stepped on the white clouds, like a fairy descending. The girl's eyes were big, half innocent and half deep. Under the worship of many wizards, she slowly floated down. The girl landed, her eyes staring at the bottom of the abyss. She raised her hand and some golden powder fell into her palm. Golden flames forbidden wood? The girl's bright eyes flickered slightly. So, the ancient tomb of the Kylan divine warrior in the ancient god realm has been found by them? She grasped with one hand, and the golden powder turned into smoke in her small palm. Her crystal-like eyes flickered slightly. The holy maiden stared at the wizards below with a dignified expression. I have only been away for half a month, and such an accident has happened. You have really disappointed me. Shaking her head, the holy maiden sighed secretly. The Moonwatch sect is so big, but there is no one who can be used. Many wizards begged for mercy. Please have mercy, holy maiden. I don't know why, but another crystal ball leaked cold air. The holy maiden waved her hand. Forget it. As she spoke, she threw out 2 cold bodies. They were the 2 super strong men who guarded the imperial sacred faction of eternal darkness, level 3 deities. But now they had turned into corpses lying straight on the ground. Take care of them. Extract their divine blood and refine their souls, the holy maiden instructed calmly. The Grand Wizard hurriedly caught the bodies and said, "Congratulations, holy maiden, for achieving great success in the heaven witchcraft art. You have killed 2 people of the same level." I only know a little about the heaven witchcraft art. It is far from great success. The holy maiden said, "Moreover, there are unimaginable strong men in the ancient god realm." The son of the imperial sacred faction, Yongye Wuheng, comprehended the essence of the combat skills left by an emperor, but it was not pure enough. Even so, he was able to block my attack and escape from my hand. Hearing this, the Grand Wizard did not take it seriously. Suddenly, he remembered something and said, "Holy maiden, there is great news." Good news? Do you mean the other crystal ball was disturbed? The holy maiden said calmly. The Grand Wizard said awkwardly, "It is the Holy Sun. The people he sent messed up the Myriad Bone Mountain mission." The holy maiden looked calm. "How do you know?" The Grand Sorcerer said, "Wu Tong sent a sorcerer named Black Mountain to report this." Black Mountain. The holy maiden's eyes flashed. "Where is he?" "In the lounge." The Grand Wizard smiled and pointed to the lounge. The holy maiden's big eyes darkened. She said calmly, "Catch him. Holy maiden, he is the first prince's man, after all." The Grand Wizard hesitated. Chapter 1349. Oh, if he is Heishan, who is the missing Heishan? The holy maiden blinked and smiled lightly. If I hadn't happened to go to the Devil Realm, I wouldn't have suspected that someone would deceive me. After hearing the whole story, the Grand Wizard was shocked and deeply frightened. He shouted angrily, "Get him out!" Swish! Dozens of sorcerers immediately surrounded the lounge. Yongye Wuming's face was ashen. At the most critical moment, the holy maiden had returned. Clenching his teeth, Yongye Wuming knew that he would not be able to escape death. Instead, he became more courageous and shouted, "Death can be as heavy as Mount Tai, or as light as a feather. I, Yongye Wuming, will die without regrets for the dynasty." Looking back, Yongye Wuming fixed his eyes on Suyu. "Boy, are you willing to follow me and kill our way out?" Suyu smiled. Although this person had the air of a spoiled brat, he was not a coward at the critical moment. "Of course," Suyu said in the form of Gang Dalei. Yongye Wuming laughed and patted Suyu on the shoulder. "You are indeed the one I have chosen. Good. I will go all out later and try to kill a god-level wizard. I have no strength left to protect you, so you have to take care of yourself." Suyu smiled lightly. "I will be careful." Ha ha ha. Yongye Wuming laughed and kicked open the door of the lounge. "Bastards of the Moonwatch sect, if you have the guts, fight me one-on-one." What greeted him were tens of ripples. Ah, where is the one-on-one fight? Yongye Wuming was hit by dozens of sorcery. His whole body was petrified, and only his eyes could move. The wizards looked at each other. Is there something wrong with this prince? Why does he want to fight one-on-one? Yes, do you think we are fools? Oh, the taste of a group of people fighting one-on-one is so wonderful. The Grand Wizard's face was sullen. It's not him. Hundreds of wizards stared at the secret room again, and countless ripples swept down. The lounge was instantly obliterated and turned into ruins. In the ruins, the figure of a black divine dragon was entrenched. Looking at this dragon, the wizards were stunned. The Grand Wizard's eyes flashed. Is your original body a demon dragon? Roar! What answered them was a dragon's roar, followed by a dark aura that filled the sky from the black dragon's nostrils. Endless dragon's breath. Wherever the dragon breath passed, the group of wizards would flee in fright. A warlock's body was much weaker than a deity realm powerhouse's. If they didn't have any defense, they would surely be killed by the dragon breath on the spot. After sweeping away the wizards, Su Yu transformed into his demon-headed human form and stared coldly at the crowd. The Grand Shaman's expression was dark as he hollered, "How dare you pretend to be the Holy Sun's man and deceive us?" "That's because you're stupid," Su Yu said expressionlessly. In order to atone for his crime, the Grand Shaman said, "All of you move aside. I will personally capture this thief." After saying that, the Grand Wizard recited an obscure incantation, and a tyrannical wave headed straight for Su Yu. Soul-binding curse. The formless ripples headed straight for Su Yu and tightly wrapped around him. Su Yu smiled apathetically. He pinched a feather covered in ice and frost between his two fingers and gently waved it. A gust of strange cold wind suddenly descended. The intensity of the cold wind forcefully dispersed the great shaman's incantation waves. The Grand Wizard was slightly surprised and did not hesitate to offer another spell. Wind freezing curse. As the spell passed, the gale set off in the sky was naturally extinguished, and the divine feather of frost fell silently. The Grand Wizard's eyes were sharp. God-killing curse. This was a dangerous witchcraft that could shock and kill the gods. Su Yu's face was calm. The moment he recited the spell, he raised one hand, and two purple golden rings crossed the void and bombarded the ripples, breaking them apart. At the same time, the two purple golden rings combined in the air and turned into a Tai Chi pattern, trapping the Grand Wizard in an instant. He couldn't react in time and was trapped by the combined yin-yang rings. Tighten! Immediately afterward, Su Yu's hands formed a seal, and the yin-yang purple gold rings immediately tightened. The wizard power condensed on the surface of the Grand Wizard's body frantically resisted, but it could do nothing against the gradually shrinking yin-yang purple gold rings. They quickly pressed down on his body, and his body was about to be crushed into flesh and blood. At this moment, the Holy Maiden, who had been watching coldly from the sidelines, finally made a move. She said lightly, "Enough." It was just a casual shout, but there was a tyrannical, almost substantial ripple sweeping through. Buzz, buzz. When the yin-yang purple gold rings were swept by the ripple, they suddenly trembled and bounced off the surface of the Grand Wizard's body. Su Yu was quick to react. Before it could fly towards the Holy Maiden, he grabbed it back. Looking at the calm face of the Holy Maiden, Su Yu was secretly shocked. The strength of this woman was too terrifying. At this moment, Su Yu looked at her face, and when he fixed his eyes on her, he couldn't help but be surprised. Wasn't this so-called Holy Maiden the seemingly innocent girl who accompanied Kalen in that attic? She was actually the Holy Maiden of the Moonwatch sect. "Do you know me?" The Holy Maiden's bright eyes were extremely sharp, and she captured the moment when Su Yu looked at her. Su Yu did not respond, but his mind was racing, thinking about the overall situation. Not receiving an answer, the Holy Maiden frowned slightly. The Grand Wizard was subdued by Su Yu, and he lost all face. He shouted angrily, "How dare you! Come on, recite the spell together." However, the holy maiden waved her hand and said lightly, "Stand down. After all, he can defeat the princess of the Shui nation in the Northern Territory and take away her emperor-based saint artifact and the divine feather of frost. You can't do anything to him." The Grand Wizard was taken aback. The purple gold rings that bound him just now were ranked 70th among the emperor-based saint artifacts, the famous purple gold rings of Yin Yang. The divine feather of frost was also ranked 100 among the emperor-based saint artifacts. The holy maiden took a step towards Suyu. Suddenly, the world roared, and the surrounding spiritual energy seemed to be squeezed crazily in all directions, forming a terrible storm that raised a lot of dust on the ground. Suyu's heart tightened, and he felt a strong pressure. At this moment, Suyu felt it more clearly. In terms of breadth, the holy maiden was above the first prince of the demon realm, second only to the demonic god of 6 paths. However, the more dangerous the situation Suyu was in, the calmer he became. His eyes flashed, and Suyu rushed towards the stairs, taking away the Prince Yongye Wuming. The holy maiden suddenly understood. It turns out that the person who pretended to be the Holy Sun wanted to escape from the ruins through the exit of this place. That was his purpose. Unfortunately, he was reckless after all. The Holy Sun's people can block the exit, but can't I? The holy maiden smiled leisurely. Near the exit there were 3 grand sorcerer-level powerhouses hidden, and they had even cast a spell on them. Even a level 3 deity might not be able to leave in a short time. Moreover, Suyu was just seeking his own death. However, the next moment, she was slightly stunned. Just as Suyu was approaching the exit of the stairs, he took a detour and went straight to the deepest part of the Saint Realm. Coming back to her senses, the holy maiden frowned slightly. What does he want to do? Hide in the depths of the Saint Realm? Gently shaking her head, the holy maiden made a seal with one hand, and a majestic wave came out of her mouth, sweeping across half of the Saint Realm in an instant. Near worlds apart curse. With a thought, the figure of the holy maiden was everywhere like a wave, and the figure of the holy maiden was everywhere. When the wave swept past Suyu, all the figures disappeared at the same time into starlight, condensing into a figure in front of Suyu. With a playful and cold smile, the holy maiden said lightly, "Do you think you can escape from my hands?" As she spoke, she pointed a finger at Suyu's eyebrows. It was obviously a seemingly casual finger, but at this moment, Suyu had an illusion that although the world was vast, there was no place to hide. No matter how Suyu dodged, he had to bear this blow. In the face of such an absolute strong attack, Suyu could not avoid it. "I can only try that move." Suyu gritted his teeth, and a vast picture quickly echoed in his mind. On the boundless earth, a great figure stood alone. He looked up at the sky, and his eyes were filled with a fierce fighting spirit. The sky, at this moment, was rumbling and pressing down, with the power to crush everything in the world. The indifferent face of the holy maiden suddenly froze, and her face suddenly changed. This is Yongye Wuhing's move. No, it is even purer than Yongye Wuhing's. As soon as her voice fell, Suyu's eyes suddenly shot out a towering fighting spirit, like a towering ancient mountain. His mouth reverberated with an ancient voice that shook time and space and spread throughout the universe. "The heavens are not destroyed, the heavens will not die." Heaven trampling 3 step. The first step shattered the sky. The second step fell the green abyss. The third step turned the world upside down. With just 3 steps, it was as if he had trampled the sky and shattered the endless sky. Suyu's black hair flew, and his eyes were bright. In the sky, he fought alone with the supreme heavens. The fighting spirit that could destroy everything turned into a mysterious power of chaos and broke out. Swish! The holy maiden hurriedly retracted her finger, and her beautiful figure flashed, retreating thousands of miles, narrowly avoiding the mysterious power that broke out. She looked down at her finger. Although she retracted it in time, it was still brittle and shattered into pieces. The gray fog flashed, and the finger was restored. However, it was immediately broken into pieces. After thousands of repairs, the residual power of chaos was finally offset. The Holy Maiden's face was full of shock. As expected, just like Yongye Wuheng, he has comprehended the essence of the heaven-fighting divine warrior's combat skills. However, compared with him, what Yongye Wuheng has learned is just the tip of the iceberg. She raised her face again and stared at Su Yu with a murderous look. The Moonwatch sect has been dormant for hundreds of millions of years. I didn't know that today's ancient god realm has so many geniuses, and even such a proud creature has appeared. This person can't be left alive. The Holy Maiden looked solemn and stared at Su Yu coldly. After using the heaven-trampling 3 steps once, Su Yu was seriously overdrawn, and his body was extremely empty and deficient. Even his camouflage revealed fluctuations and could not be completely maintained. The Holy Maiden flew over and stood 10 feet away from Su Yu. She said regretfully, "You are a rare genius, but it is a pity that you were born in the enemy's territory. It is a pity that I have to erase your existence." Unexpectedly, Su Yu, who was completely defenseless, revealed a faint smile at the corners of his mouth. "I think that before erasing my existence, you should save your clansmen first." After saying that, Su Yu said softly, "Explode." The Holy Maiden raised her eyebrows and suddenly realized something. 8 consecutive thunder-like roars came from the abyss. Suddenly, a horrible chill rushed out of the abyss and swept across the entire Saint Realm. The Holy Maiden was shocked and angry. "You did it!" The first time the power of ice in the abyss accidentally leaked, she found traces of the golden flame's forbidden wood. Now that she thought about it, it was Su Yu's doing. In addition to triggering the leakage of the power of ice, he also put in 8 additional golden flames forbidden wood beads, waiting for this moment. Between the hundreds of people and Su Yu, who would the Holy Maiden choose? If she hesitated now, hundreds of wizards would be frozen to death. Even the great wizards would die without any suspense. Gritting her silver teeth, the Holy Maiden shouted angrily, "You are so cruel!" The previous resistance and escape were all pretense. The purpose was to lead the Holy Maiden away from the abyss. Otherwise, the Holy Maiden could have stopped the golden flame's forbidden wood before it exploded. Now it was too late for her to stop it. Now there was a dilemma in front of her. She could either go back to rescue them immediately or give up on her people and deal with Su Yu. There was no time to hesitate. The Holy Maiden did not even have time to kill Su Yu, who was close at hand. She turned back to the abyss and cast a powerful spell to resist the crazy outbreak of the power of ice. Compared to the power of ice that had leaked before, it was 8 times stronger now. Even the Saintess found it extremely strenuous. While blocking the ice, she shouted, "Retreat!" Swish! All the wizards frantically fled the center of the Saint Realm and collectively fled to the Devil Realm. The Holy Maiden protected them as they retreated while blocking the ice. In this way, they retreated until they reached the edge of the Saint Realm. The power of ice was finally consumed. However, the destructive power caused by the power of ice was amazing. Looking from above, the Saint Realm that had existed for thousands of years had turned into a land of eternal ice. All the mist, including the lost people in the mist, were frozen forever. The entire Saint Realm had become a giant ice cube. There was only one passage opened by the Holy Maiden all the way to the center of the Saint Realm. At this point, everything in the Saint Realm had fallen into ice, including the transmission portal. The sorcerers' faces were pale, and fear lingered in their hearts. The Holy Maiden clenched her fists, and her innocent face was full of annoyance. Her mission had also failed. Moreover, she had been defeated by a nobody who, in her opinion, could be easily wiped out. At this moment, the Holy Maiden suddenly looked somewhere in the Saint Realm. She saw a gray flame burning there. The flame made the Holy Maiden's expression instantly grave. She shouted, "Be careful, something is coming out of the Saint Realm." As soon as her voice fell, a black-clothed young man walked out of the flame with his hands behind his back. His face was indifferent, and he stepped on the gray flame as if nothing had happened. Behind him, there were 3 deities at the level of the tribe leader. The black-clothed young man looked straight ahead and brushed past the saintess. He glanced at her from the corner of his eyes and revealed a look of pity. What a group of pitiful creatures! They don't even know what faith is. After saying that, he led the 3 deities towards the center of the devil realm. The holy maiden didn't dare to make a move. Her intuition told her that this black-clothed young man was very horrible, and she couldn't afford to provoke him. Moreover, his words of pity made the holy maiden fall into deep thought. Unable to understand, the holy maiden glanced in the direction of the center of the devil realm. Her eyes were burning with anger. What a creature of the ancient god realm! I didn't expect you to escape to the center of the devil realm in an instant. You ruined the Holy Sun's mission, and now you ruined my mission. Are you sent by God to fight against the Moonwatch sect? A deep murderous look flashed in the holy maiden's eyes. Her beautiful figure flashed and rushed in the direction of the devil realm. The black-clothed young man and the holy maiden, 2 powerful enemies, were chasing Su Yu together. A great crisis was hanging over Su Yu's head. Chapter 1350. Qi. Somewhere in the center of the devil realm, a Tai Chi pattern appeared and a strong wind blew. A pale-faced young man appeared in the whirlwind. His physical strength and divine power were severely overdrawn. He staggered and fell to the ground. Taking a few deep breaths, Su Yu sat cross-legged to restore his physical strength and divine power. In his mind, he was calculating the situation. He had provoked the Holy Maiden and the Moonwatch sect, forcing them out of the Saint realm. It was conceivable that they must be chasing Su Yu now, and within 2 or 3 days they would catch up. Therefore, there was little time left for Su Yu to prepare. In addition to the Holy Maiden, Su Yu vaguely sensed another equally terrible crisis, which was also shrouding him. This is really a crisis. If so, I need to prepare carefully. Su Yu thought to himself. 2 hours later, his physical strength was completely restored, but his divine power was still far away. In other words, Su Yu did not have another chance to escape instantly. After thinking for a while, Su Yu raised his hand and summoned Yongye Wuming, unlocking the wizard power seal on his body. Returning to his human form from a petrified state, Yongye Wuming took a few deep breaths, and his face was flushed. Ah! I almost suffocated to death. Suddenly, he looked up and found Su Yu staring at him quietly. His whole body trembled, and his eyes were full of fear. Although he was petrified at the time, he could see the scene of the battle. Su Yu had actually fought with the Saint Lady and shattered her finger. Now, he had even escaped alive. This achievement alone was enough for him to be famous in the Empire of Darkness. Yongye Wuheng also saw with his own eyes that the Grand Wizard was subdued on the spot in 3 moves under Su Yu's palm. With such a strong performance, even a fool would be able to guess that Su Yu was just keeping a low profile in front of him, not revealing his true strength. Yongye Wuheng felt ashamed and blushed. He smiled bitterly and said, "Su, Lord Su, if you have such strength, why didn't you tell me earlier?" Thinking of the fact that he had treated him as a subordinate along the way, Yongye Wuheng secretly felt lucky that he did not order him to do anything drastic. Otherwise, he would have become a corpse long ago. "Wuheng, can you answer a question for me?" Su Yu stared at Yongye Wuheng, his eyes filled with deep light. Yongye Wuheng patted his chest. "My life was saved by you. Even if you ask me how big my wife's butt is, I will tell you." Su Yu was speechless. Straightening his face, Su Yu said seriously, "I want to know, what is the purpose of the sacred faction of the Empire of Darkness coming to the sanctuary?" Hearing this, Yongye Wuheng had an unnatural look on his face, but he quickly concealed it. He laughed and said, "It's not a secret. In fact, it's just unearthing a creation-level civilization weapon." Su Yu's eyes were cold. Is that so? Do the so-called creation-level civilization weapons really exist? Yongye Wuheng's face became even more stiff, but he forced himself to calm down. What are you talking about? The creator-level civilization weapon has existed for countless years, and it is not a secret. This can be known by any master. Suyu stared at him silently for a moment, then slowly stood up and said calmly, "All right, take care of yourself." Since he was hiding something and was unwilling to reveal the truth, Suyu didn't need to protect him anymore. So, he decided to let him fend for himself. With that, he took a step towards the dark ruins, murmuring softly, "The Empire of Darkness, you've really hidden it well, wait." Yongye Wuheng was shocked and hurriedly called out. However, Suyu had already disappeared. Yongye Wuheng looked around with a sad face. When he recalled that there were wizards everywhere, he couldn't help but feel remorseful. A few hours later, Suyu arrived at the dark ruins. This was the place where Suyu was transmitted to. He clearly remembered that there was a toad of level 4 deity called the Seven Poisons demonic toad. He glanced around and found that the dark ruins were empty. There was no sign of the Seven Poisons demonic toad. He floated down and came to the palace where the Seven Poisons demonic toad was hiding. There were messy traces of battle, as well as residual blood and venom. Sure enough, Suyu stared at it. Something big is going to happen in the ruins. The Seven Poisons demonic toad had identified its target and never gave up, except for Suyu. At that time, the Seven Poisons demonic toad must have sensed something and was afraid to go out. On the myriad bone mountain, the fierce guardian spirit of the frozen river bottom, the nine-headed devil saint, came out with all its ghost bats, but the nine-headed devil saint was nowhere to be seen. Where did it go? Perhaps it was captured by some powerful being like the Seven Poisons demonic toad. This powerful being must be what the Seven Poisons demonic toad was afraid of. Suyu squinted his eyes, revealing a penetrating light. Rather than saying that this relic is an exploration, it would be better to say that it is a trap. Dong. As Suyu was talking to himself, a strange sound came from the depths of the palace. This palace had been occupied by the Seven Poisons demonic toad for a long time. It emitted intense poisonous gas all the time, so the hall was filled with poisonous gas. Just standing here, Suyu felt his skin prickling. If he went deeper, even a level 6 deity would not be able to bear it. Logically, there could not be any living creatures in the depths of the palace. That movement really aroused Suyu's vigilance. With a thought, Suyu hid his figure and used the fragment of the rules to hide his breath. Then, he quietly walked into the depths of the palace. Sure enough, the deeper he went, the more poisonous the gas became. There were muddy swamps everywhere. The swamps also emitted strong corrosive poisonous gas, which could corrode a deity with a slight touch. After walking for 10,000 feet, Suyu finally saw the deepest part of the palace. There was a 7-colored lake inside. The waves were rippling, and the fragrance was overflowing. It was completely different from the stench of the poisonous gas outside. Just as Suyu was surprised by the situation in the palace, there was a sudden ripple in the lake, and a beautiful figure suddenly emerged from the water, enjoying the pleasure of bathing. Her long black hair fell softly behind her back, wet like pearls. An exquisite and beautiful body, like a sculpture of art, appeared in front of him in its natural form. Looking at her jade face, it was exquisite and peerless, almost the same as the mermaids of the mermaid tribe. Suyu was slightly stunned, not because he was stunned, but because he was surprised by the identity of this woman. There were fluctuations of divine power and sorcery energy in his body, which was extremely strange. "Who is it?" As if sensing the strange gaze, the woman suddenly shouted coldly. She turned her head and saw a man with the head of a dragon and the body of a human staring at her blankly. Apart from being surprised, she felt embarrassed and annoyed. She grabbed with one hand, and a mass of floating light emerged around her body, covering her snow-white natural body. However, Her pretty face, which was covered with coldness, had no intention of hiding. After leaving the colorful lake, the woman did not say anything but attacked Su Yu with a vague murderous intent. Su Yu's face was calm as he looked her up and down. "You are not a creature of the ancient god realm, nor are you a wizard. Who are you?" The woman said coldly, "I will tell you when we are underground." A divine power pierced through the sky and headed straight for him. Su Yu's eyes flashed, and he took out the divine feather of frost and waved it gently. Suddenly, a shocking gust of wind suddenly descended, not only blowing away the divine power, but also lifting the woman up and smashing her against the stone wall. She groaned, and golden blood overflowed from the corner of her mouth. "The divine feather of frost of the Xue nation of the Northern Territory. Who are you?" the woman said coldly. Su Yu walked over, pointed the feather at her forehead, and said lightly, "Now I am asking you, who are you and what are you doing here? Did you see the 7 poisons demonic toad being taken away by something?" The woman stared at Su Yu, and her expression quickly calmed down. She said in a neither humble nor arrogant manner, "I am a citizen of the heaven-defying empire who accidentally entered the ruins. I found the scent of the spiritual pool here, so I came here. As for the 7 poisons demonic toad, what is that?" Hearing the woman's insincerity, Su Yu frowned but did not bother to ask more. This woman was only a level 6 deity. If she knew that this was the lair of the 7 poisons demonic toad, she might not dare to come here. Be honest. Su Yu walked towards the colorful lake, thinking, how could there be such an abundant spiritual pool in a place with poisonous gas? After thinking about it, Su Yu shook his sleeves and rolled up a pool of water. Just as he was about to reach out and grab it, his heart skipped a beat, and he suddenly looked back at the woman. He saw that her eyes were full of expectation, staring at Su Yu's actions. When she found that Su Yu had turned around, she immediately pretended that nothing had happened. There was something wrong with the pool water. Su Yu immediately stepped back. The pool water that was rolled up lost its foil and spilled on the ground. Sizzle! Suddenly, the ground was corroded and emitted green smoke, quickly melting a deep pit. At the same time, it emitted an incomparably foul smell, exactly the same as the poisonous gas of the 7 poisons demonic toad. Could it be the venom left behind by the 7 poisons demonic toad? Su Yu gasped lightly. There was so much of it. The venom of the 7 poisons demonic toad could at least kill a level 5 deity. Even a level 4 deity, once touched by the venom, would feel extremely uncomfortable. The most amazing thing was that the venom of the 7 poisons demonic toad would emit a foul smell if a small amount was ingested. However, if it was very concentrated, it would emit a sweet fragrance, like a spiritual pool, which was extremely confusing. Imagine what would happen to anyone who accidentally ingested it or jumped into it to absorb the spiritual energy in it. Even a level 4 deity would end up dead and his soul destroyed. This is good stuff, Su Yu exclaimed. Immediately, many magical uses of the venom appeared in his mind. With a thought, the 9 jade spiritual pearl on his arm opened. Su Yu opened up a deep pit in the 9 jade spiritual pearl with his mind. Then, with a wave of his hand, the entire colorful lake was sucked into the deep pit of the 9 jade spiritual pearl and stored. The woman bit her red lips as she watched from the side. She was filled with hatred, but she did not dare to step forward to stop Su Yu. She watched helplessly as Su Yu took away all the spiritual liquid. Su Yu was in a slightly better mood. After processing the venom, he looked at the woman. His eyes flickered slightly, and he said, "You can actually bathe in the spiritual liquid of the 7 poisons demonic toad. It shows that your body is extraordinary. Even a level 4 deity would not dare to bathe in this venom." Not only did she dare to do so, but she was also safe and sound. The woman clenched her teeth and did not say a word. "Anyway, I didn't expect you to confess. I'll do it myself." Su Yu sucked her in through the air. The woman's reaction was surprisingly fast. She immediately turned into a remnant of light and fled out of the hall. Suyu smiled and threw out 2 purple gold rings with one hand. They combined into one in the air, and turned into the purple gold yin-yang rings, trapping her suddenly. Chapter 1351. Suyu walked over and took a look at her body. Then, he touched her body with one hand and began to feel her up and down. What a strange physique! No, to be precise, it's a strange curse, Suyu murmured, not noticing the woman's flushed face. However, when she heard Suyu say that Suyu had a curse on him, there was a tinge of surprise in her embarrassment and indignation. This curse is quite powerful. Even the sorcery of the Saint Lady. Well, judging from the fight, it can't be this powerful. Could it be the sorcery of the Moonwatch sect leader himself? Suyu was surprised. He was talking to himself. He didn't mean it, but it sounded like thunder in the woman's ears. You fought with the Saint Lady? The woman was shocked. Who was this man in front of her? He hadn't reached the realm of deities, but he could exert divine power and carry all kinds of treasures. The effect of this wizard curse seems to be a kind of poison sorcery, which causes your body to be slowly corroded by the deadly poison. Logically speaking, you should have died long ago, Suyu said as he pondered. Then, he came to a sudden realization. You've relied on fighting poison with poison to barely survive until today, haven't you? No wonder you bathed in the venom. You are safe and sound because the poison in your body is strong, which counteracts the poison of the 7 poisons demonic toad. Suyu released his hand and put away the violet gold rings of yin-yang. Now that he knew the whole story, he didn't want to delve into it. He looked at her calmly. Take care. After that, he left without taking her life. The woman breathed a sigh of relief and was surprised. Ordinary people couldn't tell that she was cursed. In the Empire of Darkness, even people like Shangguan Feiyu couldn't detect it. Only the Emperor Yongye Zhiyang could detect it. What was wrong with this creature with the head of a dragon and the body of a human? However, when she recalled that he had touched her body, she was angry and resentful. I was just taking a bath. Who did I offend? Why should I be seen and touched? Damn it. Don't wait until I see you again, or I'll make you pay. Just then, a questioning voice came. Chushue, who are you talking to? A handsome young man with a noble aura walked in and happened to hear her speak. If Suyu was here, he would not be a stranger. This man was Yongye Wuheng of the Imperial Sacred Faction. The woman named Chushue was undoubtedly Yongye Chushue. Yongye Chushue blushed and stammered, No, nothing. What about the poison pool of the 7 poisons demonic toad? Yongye Wuheng asked in surprise. Hearing this, Yongye Chushue had no choice but to tell him the whole story. Yongye Wuheng's eyes flashed with a cold light when he heard that a mysterious person had broken in, not only snatched the poison pool, but also molested his sister. He said coldly, How dare you? Brother, I don't think he is malicious. Otherwise, I would not be fine now. Let me do it myself. If I meet him again, I will definitely make him pay. Yongye Chushue's snow-white face was burning. Yongye Wuheng blamed himself and said, It's all my fault. This time, I insisted on taking you to dig that thing together with me. Obviously, you have a seal on your body. If the seal was removed, you wouldn't have been molested by an inexplicable person. Your real realm is level 3. A touch of envy appeared on Yongye Wuheng's face. The world only knew that Yongye Wuheng was the most talented person in the past 100 years, but few people knew that the most talented person was actually his low-key sister. She was a genius who was born with the realm of the god. This was still a strictly guarded secret of the royal family. Apart from their dead mother, the only people in this world who knew this secret were the king and her brother. However, she was born with a curse that sealed most of her power. She could only use it on rare occasions. She had just taken a bath, so it was not convenient for her to tear the seal. Otherwise, Suyu would be the one to die. Yongye Chushue looked sad. I hope I can find a solution when I go to the Lost Nation. Then, she asked nervously, Brother, what is the situation outside? Yongye Wuheng's face darkened. The 2 deputy commanders were killed by the Holy Maiden, and the 3 royal brothers are missing. They must have met with misfortune. The exits of the Devil Realm and the Mortal Realm are blocked. We are likely to be trapped in the ruins for 100 years. And Yongye Wuheng frowned. The Saint Realm has changed. The ice eye of the divine warrior of ice and fire suddenly activated and froze the whole Saint Realm. Hearing this, Yongye Chushue's face was solemn. Brother, what happened? Did you find out? If the eye of extreme ice were to explode, it would be no small matter. The entire Empire of Darkness might be within its range. By then, the Empire of Darkness might be destroyed overnight. Shaking his head, Yongye Wuheng said, We have no eyes and ears. It is very difficult to find out the inside story. The only thing we know is that they are capturing a mysterious man with a dragon's head and a human body. It is likely that he is the one who triggered the ice eye. I searched the memory of a wizard's soul and learned that. His face flashed with shock. This mysterious man fought with the Holy Maiden and retreated calmly. A dragon's head and a human body? Yongye Chushue was shocked. Brother, the mysterious man who broke in just now also had a dragon's head and a human body. By the way, he also said that he had fought with the Holy Maiden. Yongye Wuheng was shocked. Is it him? Yongye Wuheng's eyes flickered and he said, Chushue, we may have a chance to leave the ruins. Do you mean, cooperate with him? Yongye Chushue felt uncomfortable all over, especially where Su Yu had touched her. She felt numb all over. Yongye Wuheng nodded. Yes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. He is being chased by the Holy Maiden. At this moment, he will definitely force an exit. We might as well cooperate with him and escape from the ruins together. Yongye Chushue's face turned red. She was extremely reluctant, but she still obeyed reason. Well, I still remember his breath. He is in that direction. However, before getting up, Yongye Chushue also covered her face with radiance and hid her breath. The brother and sister quickly went out, and within half a day they found Su Yu. However, unlike what they had imagined, Su Yu did not rush to escape through the exit. Instead, he stayed on the top of a mountain and carefully arranged something. They only saw a few golden lights before Su Yu finished arranging something. He looked back at the brother and sister from afar. Yongye Wuheng, Yongye Chushue? Su Yu was surprised to meet the brother and sister. However, Su Yu was currently hiding his identity, so he did not reveal it. He continued to arrange other things as if nothing had happened. Yongye Wuheng looked at Yongye Chushue, and she nodded in confirmation. Yongye Wuheng patted her clenched hand and said, A little impatience will spoil great plans. With your current appearance, it is impossible for him to recognize you. Gritting her teeth, Yongye Chushue suppressed the urge to fight and calmed down. She walked forward with a smile and said, I am Yongye Wuheng. I was shocked to hear that you fought against the Saint Lady. I admire you very much. Su Yu listened but did not respond. To tell you the truth, we are also being hunted by the Moonwatch sect. If you don't mind, we are willing to help you open an exit and leave the ruins. Su Yu straightened up, looked at the brother and sister for a while, and said, We can cooperate. Hearing this, Yongye Wuheng and Yongye Chushue could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. However, before they could show their joy, they heard Su Yu say, But not to escape, but to annihilate them here. Hearing this, the two of them, who had seen much of the world and were members of the Imperial Sacred Faction, were petrified on the spot. Annihilate the Saint Lady? Even Shangguan Feiyu wouldn't dare to say such arrogant words. After thinking about it, Yongye Wuheng said, You may not know this, but 2 level 3 deities of the Empire of Darkness have unfortunately fallen in the hands of this woman. Unexpectedly, Su Yu said calmly, Yes, I saw it. What? Yongye Wuheng was taken aback. He saw it with his own eyes? Then you should know how powerful the Holy Maiden is. Why don't we choose the exit Grand Wizard, who is easier to deal with? Yongye Wuheng said. Suyu looked up into the sky and murmured, I also thought that we would be safe after leaving the ruins, but now it seems that it is more dangerous outside the ruins. The clues alerted Suyu that it was not safe outside the ruins. It was very likely that what awaited them were enemies. Enemies more terrible than the Moonwatch sect. What? Yongye Wuheng's eyes flashed, and he caught the meaning of Suyu's words. You mean? Yongye Wuheng said. Suyu took a deep look at him. You'll have to ask the Empire of Darkness yourselves. You've been secretly excavating for so many years. I guess the news has finally leaked out and people have found out. Hearing this, Yongye Wuheng and Yongye Chushua were both shocked, as if they had been seen through. In short, if you want to venture out of the ruins, I will not stop you. If you want to stay and help me, I welcome you, Suyu said calmly. Yongye Wuheng and Yongye Chushua looked at each other and believed Suyu's words. If the news that the ruins were the tomb of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior was exposed, it was entirely possible that it would attract terrible enemies. In addition, the restrictions on the opening of the ruins had been lifted, which made them even more convinced. Perhaps the exploration of the ruins this time really contained great danger. Yongye Wuheng's eyes flashed, and he said, May I ask how confident you are in destroying the people of the Moonwatch sect? 50%. Suyu thought about it seriously. Yongye Wuheng's eyes lit up, and he looked surprised. I didn't expect you to be so confident. If it is 50%, it is not impossible. Well, I choose to join you and face the enemy together. As a condition of cooperation, I hope you can explain to me the means of the arrangement, so that I can judge whether what you said is true or not. Suyu laughed deeply. Okay, in order to show my sincerity, I will tell you another message. The people who are coming are not only the Holy Maiden, but also a powerful creature who is no weaker than the Holy Maiden. Chapter 1352. One Saint Lady of the Moon sect was not enough, and now there was another powerful being comparable to the Saint Lady? Yongye Wuheng couldn't imagine how Suyu could fight against the two of them alone. Xeni 8 Unksu. It was true that Suyu had fought against the Saint Lady of the Moon sect, but it was uncertain whether he could defeat her, let alone fight against two such strong beings at the same time. So, are you still willing to cooperate with me? Suyu smiled calmly. Yongye Wuheng thought for a while and smiled bitterly. Do I have a choice? All the exits were sealed. Even if they were lucky enough to escape, greater dangers might be waiting for them outside. He could only take a gamble in the ruins. What are the odds of winning now? Yongye Wuheng asked. Suyu said slowly, probably less than 10%. If one of my guesses is wrong, it will be less than 10%. After that, Suyu continued to lay out the plan carefully. Yongye Wuheng took a deep breath and said to Yongye Chushua with shame, I really implicated you this time. You should have gone straight to the Lost Nation to find a way to solve the witchcraft, but you will be buried here because of me. Yongye Chushua shook her head gently. I don't blame you. Even if we are safe and sound, Suyu may not be alive. With so many followers of the Moonwatch sect, once they find him, they will definitely not spare him. Judging from the current situation, the probability of him still being alive was very small. In this regard, Yongye Wuheng felt a little regretful. This person is really a pity. I have always suspected that he comprehended the heaven-fighting 3 strokes of the heaven-fighting divine warrior. I can't be wrong about that familiar feeling when he smashed the door of the secret room that day. Suyu's heart moved slightly when he heard this, but he pretended to be indifferent. Half a day later, an inexplicable depression emerged in Suyu's heart, making him breathless. They are coming. He just didn't know which force would come first. Suyu still laid out the plan in an orderly manner and did not stop because of this. 2 hours later, Suyu's heart was pounding. That was the reason why the crisis was approaching rapidly. The enemy was coming soon. An hour later, Suyu's body trembled, and a black dragon appeared involuntarily on the surface of his body, as if his body had sensed something of the same origin. Suyu raised his head, his eyes full of surprise. How could Suyu not know this feeling of flesh and blood? It was the World Annihilation Dragon. However, if the World Annihilation Dragon were to descend, Suyu's body would react even more violently. It was not the World Annihilation Dragon, but something or someone closely related to it. It seems that the World Annihilation Dragon is not willing to give up the World Annihilation Dragon's rule fragment. Suyu smiled coldly. Well, since you came first, I will let you have a try. An hour later, the rumbling of thunder and scorching heat waves came from the depths of the sky. As well as an aura that could destroy heaven and earth, Yongye Wuheng and Yongye Chushue finally sensed the arrival of this terrifying aura. Both of them gasped. What a domineering aura! It's full of destructive power and the aura of a dragon. Yongye Wuheng frowned and said. Yongye Chushue pressed her hand against her chest and said with a fierce look in her eyes, Brother, if you have no other choice, run away. You want to forcefully open the seal? Yongye Wuheng was even more ashamed. If it is opened again, the curse will break out completely, and no one will be able to save you at that time. Yongye Chushue's eyes were surprisingly calm, as if she had seen through life and death. In this world, there is only life and death. Since we are both going to die, we might as well fight to the death. Oh, if my sister can do this, how can I, your brother, live like a coward? Yongye Wuheng was also inspired to fight. Ahem. I don't mean to interrupt your heroic speech. Now, can you do me a favor? The two of them were embarrassed. Yongye Wuheng stepped forward and said proudly, Wuheng can't do anything else, but when it comes to killing the enemy, I will never retreat. Then you should retreat. I don't need you to kill the enemy. Your strength is insignificant in front of all my arrangements. Yongye Wuheng was surprised, but he was a little angry in his heart. He said expressionlessly, What do you want me to do? Just tell me. Go to the center of the Saint Realm for me, Suyu said lightly. Not only Yongye Wuheng, but also Yongye Chushue was shocked. They never expected that at this critical moment, Suyu would only ask them to go to the Saint Realm. That place has become a world of ice and snow. Don't tell me you want to dig up the world-level civilization weapon now to change the situation? Yongye Chushue was very puzzled. Suyu shook his head. No, I just want you to bring something there. If everything goes well, you should be able to make it in time. As he spoke, Suyu took out a sealed golden box and handed it to Yongye Wuheng. Put this into the center of the Saint Realm, where the world-level civilization weapon is located. Whether we can be saved or not depends on whether you are willing to do it. Yongye Wuheng tried to see what was inside, but this golden box was actually made of the waste of the Golden Flame's forbidden wood, so he couldn't break it at all. Therefore, he had no idea what was inside this golden box. Yongye Wuheng was surprised. If it is just to bring something, it should not be difficult, but is it possible in time? At my speed, it will take at least 5 days to get to the center of the Saint Realm. 5 days. Can you still hold on? Suyu smiled faintly, and a Tai Chi pattern appeared on top of his head. The yin and yang energy shrouded the brother and sister. I can send you there in an instant. Both of them were stunned when they saw this object, and then they were astounded. Tai Chi yin-yang wings. The brother and sister both exclaimed in shock. How could they not know the emperor-based saint artifact of the Tai Ching Divine Emperor? This was a heaven-defying flying treasure that had long been lost between heaven and earth. It was ranked 19th in the ancient divine weapon list. It is in your hands. Yongye Wuheng couldn't believe it. If this matter was spread out, even the Emperor of the Empire of Darkness would have to deal with it in person. Who wouldn't be tempted by the inheritance of one of the 9 emperors? Suyu's expression was indifferent. Whether we can leave here alive or not depends on you and your sister. Wait, Yongye Wuheng said. If this golden box can change the situation, why don't you send it in person? Why stay here and take the risk to fight with them? Suyu smiled helplessly. If I hadn't attracted them here, would it have been possible for me to place this thing here? This. Yongye Wuheng's eyes were filled with admiration. He bowed and said, Wuheng admires you. However, leave this matter to my sister. I'm a little dissatisfied. My ability is insignificant compared to your arrangement. How would you know if you don't try? Seeing the inexplicable fighting spirit in Yongye Wuheng's eyes, Suyu no longer tried to dissuade him. Instead, he gathered all the yin and yang energy above Yongye Chushue's head. Yongye Wuheng didn't give her a chance to refuse and threw the gold box to her. Wait, don't! Yongye Chushue exclaimed. However, before she could refuse, the yin and yang energies circulated, instantly teleporting her hundreds of millions of miles away, directly arriving at the center of the Saint region. Suyu and Yongye Wuheng, who were left behind, looked at each other and smiled. Then, they looked at the distant sky together. Over there, 4 indistinct black figures stomped on the ground, causing heaven and earth to rumble. Majestic auras descended. The black-robed man in the lead walked over with his hands clasped behind his back. His expression was grave and stern, and his entire body emitted an unsettling aura. Suyu's pupils shrank slightly. Sure enough, it was the breath of the World Annihilation Dragon. Suyu was no stranger to the 3 people behind him. The arrow slave, who carried a golden longbow on his back. There was also the Thunderbolt Immortal, who was surrounded by thunderbolts, and the Black Flame Immortal, who was surrounded by black flames. The 4 of them came across the sky in a turbulent manner. Ants, we finally meet, the black-robed young man said in an indifferent tone, full of contempt and a little annoyance. Suyu's face was calm. Indeed, we meet again, good for nothing. The black-robed young man smiled coldly, and his white teeth reflected a frightening cold light in the sunlight. I think it's more appropriate to describe you as a good for nothing. Then, who was the one who came here aggressively, only to be suppressed for hundreds of millions of years? It was you, wasn't it? Suyu said lightly. You failed to kill me, and instead, your treasure was stolen by me. Now, you are so exasperated that you sent your doppelganger out to look for me. Isn't it you? I don't understand. A good-for-nothing like you, not only did you not feel ashamed, but you also looked down on this and that. Do you think you are so great? The black-robed young man's eyebrows were cold, and his killing intent was deep. His smile became more and more sinister. What a sharp tongue. Unfortunately, I am not here today to bicker with you. The black-robed young man looked at the 3 arrow slaves. Don't you want to kill him and take back the descendants of the World Annihilation Emperor? I will leave him to you. Hearing this, Yongye Wuheng was shocked. The descendants of the World Annihilation Emperor still existed in this world? Weren't they all killed in the past? Also, these people had all fallen into Suyu's hands. If the divine blood of the World Annihilation Emperor was extracted, how much would it be? The arrow slaves were slightly surprised. It was obvious that the black-robed young man could easily kill them. Why did he still need to use them? However, they were confident that they could kill Suyu. Since they had been defeated in the past, they still preferred to do it themselves. Leave the arrow slave to me. Yongye Wuheng's eyes were sharp, and he was keenly aware that the arrow slave was the most difficult to deal with. Suyu shook his head lightly. To deal with them, I alone am enough. In the past, Suyu had suffered a lot when the 4 of them hunted him down. But now it was different from the past. Haha, after half a year, your cultivation has not made any progress, but your arrogance has skyrocketed. In the past, you were hunted by us like a stray dog, but now you dare to bark like a dog. The arrow slave laughed. The real body of Thunderbolt and the real body of Black Flame also sneered at Suyu. Suyu said with a smile, 4 level 5 deities ambushed a stage 4 mortal fairy. Not only did they fail to kill him, but they also lost one of their deities. This is a laughingstock, but in your words, it has become a great honor. TSK, it is really sad that the descendants of the Arrow Slave have become so depraved. The Arrow Slave's face froze and then darkened. The faces of the Thunderbolt Immortal and the Black Flame Immortal also darkened. That is because your conspiracy succeeded, the Arrow Slave shouted coldly. However, he was interrupted by Suyu with a fake smile. This is the excuse of the weak. The Arrow Slave was stunned, and his expression became more serious. Two immortals, don't talk nonsense with him anymore. Let's end this quickly. As he said that, the three of them flew over. The Arrow Slave pulled the long arrow from afar, and suppressed Suyu with the same method, so that the Black Flame Immortal and the Thunderbolt Immortal had enough time to perform their joint attack. Suyu sneered. You want to use the same trick again? But you need to have a chance to perform it again. For saying that, he raised his left hand. All of a sudden, the wind and clouds changed. Two magnificent rays of black light ran through thousands of miles of mountains and rivers, and condensed into a Tai Chi pattern in the sky. Chapter 1353. The Tai Chi pattern shrouded all three of them in the air. The Arrow Slave sneered, ambush. As he said that, he retreated quickly. As a long-range attack deity, standing outside the attack range of the enemy was the best way. However, as soon as he moved, a gust of cold wind suddenly swept in from outside the Tai Chi pattern. The Arrow Slave was shocked. He tried to break through the storm and get out of the range of the Tai Chi pattern. However, he failed and was pushed into the center of the Tai Chi pattern by the storm. Close. While the Arrow Slave was shocked and angry, Suyu shouted in a low voice. The Tai Chi pattern shrank rapidly. It shrank from 10 million feet to 1 million feet, and from 1 million feet to 1 million feet. The storm outside also shrank, making it impossible for them to escape. The Arrow Slave said coldly, "Kill the leader first. Kill Suyu, and the ambush will be destroyed." He raised his golden bow and shot an arrow at Suyu, who was outside the storm. The golden arrow stayed in the storm for a while. Then, it successfully passed through the storm and shot at Suyu. Suyu was in the middle of casting the spell and couldn't move. When he was about to be killed by the arrow, blue ice light suddenly appeared on the surface of his body. Ding! The long arrow sank into the ice blue light and couldn't go any further. After a few seconds, it finally fell to the ground. At this time, the Tai Chi pattern shrank to a radius of 10 feet. The Arrow Slave shouted anxiously, "It's too late to cast the joint attack. Let's break through." The Thunderbolt Immortal and the Black Flame Immortal were shocked by the situation in front of them. How could they continue to cast the divine path calmly? The three of them used all kinds of magic treasures to resist the rapidly shrinking Tai Chi pattern with their divine strength. However, the Tai Chi pattern shrank crazily with an unstoppable momentum. 10 feet, 8 feet, 15 feet, 30 feet, 10 feet. At last, it shrank to 5 feet. The three of them were squeezed together. At this time, the Tai Chi pattern finally revealed its true appearance. The Arrow Slave and the two immortals were scared out of their wits. The purple gold ring of Yin Yang, the Imperial Saint artifact of the Xue Nation in the North Territory? This emperor-based saint artifact ranked in the 70s was very famous. Countless tribe leaders had been killed by it. Without exception, they were all squeezed to death. Quickly activate your divine Tao. The three of us can still resist the violet gold Yin Yang rings. The Arrow Slave's expression changed drastically, and he almost roared. He had never thought that, after only a few months, when he would face Suyu again, the situation would be so one-sided. Clang! When the purple gold Yin Yang rings compressed again, the trio's divine Tao was finally able to resist it and did not compress any further. Arrow Slave's face was as gloomy as water, and he said in a stern voice, "If I don't kill him, I am not a man." "Then, you should just become a ghost," Suyu said calmly, while he took out an exquisite peacock with a flip of his palm. The peacock danced in the sky, and the circular rings of light on its feathers shot out beams of divine light towards the three of them. The moment the divine light appeared, the arrow slave's heart was in his throat. He said in horror, "Is that the peacock plume that killed Yin Wu, a level 2 deity, in the Great War?" As soon as he finished speaking, a beam of divine light shot straight at him. The arrow slave was scared out of his wits. He turned his body and moved the immortal of black flame to his position. In an instant, the immortal of black flame was pierced into pieces, and he didn't even have the chance to scream. The thunderbolt immortal was furious. "Arrow slave, you!" As soon as he finished speaking, another beam of divine light shot towards him, and this time it was aimed at the arrow slave. The arrow slave was frightened, and he shouted angrily, "Sue, do you really want to fight me to the death? Oh, now you are talking about fighting me to the death? Even if you die, the net will not be broken," Suyu said coldly. Swoosh! The divine light pierced through, and the arrow slave tried to move again, but he was stopped by the thunderbolt immortal, who shouted, "Arrow slave, you dog slave, you deserve to be killed, and only your soul is left. When the World Annihilation Imperial Sacred Faction was in danger, you betrayed him, and now you betrayed us when we are in danger. No wonder the Grand Elder was worried about you and transformed all of you into puppets. Haha, you deserve it." The arrow slave's face was gloomy, and he took out an arrow and pierced through the thunderbolt immortal's head from behind. He said gloomily, "You can shut up now." One of the thunderbolt immortal's eyes was pierced by the arrow, and he looked extremely ferocious. He said with a hideous smile, "Sue, his weakness is between the eyebrows, and other parts of his body can't kill him. Don't miss." The arrow slave turned his wrist, and the arrow stirred, and ended the thunderbolt immortal's life completely. "Between the eyebrows?" "Thank you," Suyu said, and raised the longbow of the golden flames forbidden wood expressionlessly. "The last arrow is for you." Swish! With a beam of divine light, the golden arrow also turned into a ray of remnant light, piercing through the arrow slave from 2 directions, and went straight for his vital point between the eyebrows. At this moment, even if he wanted to escape, he had no chance. At the critical moment of life and death, the arrow slave shouted at the black-clothed youth, "Master, if not now, when?" "Heh heh." The black-clothed youth, who had been watching from the side, smiled evilly, and took a step towards Suyu. "Who gave you the right to kill my people?" As soon as his voice fell, the infinite dragon breath covered the sky and the earth. Even if the saintess of the god sect were here, she would still be afraid of the terrifying flames. However, Suyu did not even look at it and coldly shouted, "Get out of here!" After saying that, he also took a step forward. Suddenly, the sky and the earth rumbled, as if it had been crushed into pieces. There was even a roar in the universe, and a cry that shattered the ancient time and space. The shocking fighting spirit rose from the ground, and turned into an amazing will that broke through the flames. The black-clothed youth's face suddenly froze, and he raised his arms. Clang! As if he had been bombarded by omnipresent attacks, the clothes of the black-clothed youth were shattered, revealing his dark body with scales. His whole body was bombarded everywhere, and sparks flew from the friction. Thud, thud, thud! The evil-looking youth took a few steps back, and a black breath overflowed from the corner of his mouth. It seemed that he had suffered a serious injury. At the same time, a scream of unwillingness pierced through the sky. The arrow slave avoided the divine light of the peacock feather, but his head was pierced by the light of the arrow. From between the eyebrows, a group of soul fragments drifted out. His eyes dimmed, and the arrow slave was unable to resist the violet gold rings of yin-yang. With a click, the arrow slave's body was crushed, and he completely disappeared from the world. Yongye Wuheng, who witnessed all this, was shocked. He was not convinced by Su Yu's evaluation of him. Compared to his arrangements, his strength was negligible. But now, he was convinced. It was impossible for him to kill 3 level 5 deities in one go. What shocked him the most was the shocking battle will. How could he not know what it was? The essence of the heaven-fighting divine warrior, the first style of the heaven-fighting three-strokes, heaven-stomping style. In an instant Yongye Wuheng realized who the mysterious strong man with a dragon head and human body in front of him was. He was Su Yu. The Su Yu who fought with the Saint Lady and took away the Imperial Saint artifact of the Xue nation in the Northern Territory. Also, the Su Yu who molested his sister and took away the colorful poison pool. Knowing that it was him, Yongye Wuheng could not help but feel relieved and even a little happy. If his sister's husband was like this, it seemed that the crime of molesting him could be completely ignored. For a moment, Yongye Wuheng couldn't help but laugh. This was a genius who could understand the heaven-fighting three-strokes. His sister was lucky. Compared to his joy, the young man in black was extremely gloomy. After all, he failed to save the arrow slave and was injured himself. The playful look in his eyes had long been replaced by a strong murderous intent. He gritted his teeth and said, "Good, good, good. The essence of the heaven-fighting divine warrior's combat skills has fallen into your hands." What he cared about at the moment was not the life and death of the arrow slave, but his own honor and disgrace. Su Yu raised his hand and grabbed the violet gold rings of Yin Yang back. Then he floated towards him and said indifferently, "A good-for-nothing is a good-for-nothing. You can't even protect the person you want to protect, and you only dare to speak harshly." Hearing this, the evil young man looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. "Aunt, don't think I don't know that you have set up an ambush here, waiting for me to attack. Now it seems that the ambush is almost exposed, right?" He did not let the 3 arrow slaves attack first for no reason. It was to test whether Su Yu had set up an ambush. After all, Su Yu not only survived the fragment of the law, but also refined the fragment of the law. How could the World Annihilation Dragon not be afraid of him? However, he found that Su Yu's arrangement was nothing more than that, so he was slightly relieved. After saying that, the evil young man shook his body and shook away the remaining power of desolation around him. With a fierce look, he turned into a world annihilation dragon that was thousands of feet long. With a roar, he flew over. However, Su Yu's mouth was slightly sarcastic. "Exhausted? Before saying that, you should really know more about me." 9 Suns Sword Formation. Without giving the other party a chance to respond, Su Yu shouted. Suddenly, a shocking scene appeared. 9 dazzling golden suns suddenly appeared in the sky, hanging in the sky, surrounding thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. The sky, the earth, the mountains, and the rivers were all rendered golden by the golden sunlight, as if the whole world had fallen into a world of gold. Yongye Wuheng looked up at the dazzling golden light and could not open his eyes. Not only was the golden light dazzling, but there was also a fierce and terrible sword energy pouring down with the golden light. Swish! A sense of crisis rose in Yongye Wuheng's heart, and he immediately retreated to the edge of thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. Although none of the sword energy was deliberately aimed at him, Yongye Wuheng's intuition told him that if he stayed here, he might be killed by the sword energy. After retreating thousands of miles of mountains and rivers, Yongye Wuheng immediately ran his divine power, rolling it to his limbs and veins. He saw that tiny needle-like swords were forced out of his pores one after another. His meridians had already shown tens of thousands of signs of rupture. His flesh, internal organs, and bones were all injured, which were invisible to the naked eye. Yongye Wuheng took a breath of cold air and looked up at the 9 suns again. His eyes were filled with horror. What kind of sword formation is this? Wait, why does it seem so familiar? Chapter 1354. However, even the Emperor couldn't do anything to me, let alone the sword formation left behind. The World Annihilation Dragon swept its long tail. Boom! Boom! As the long tail swept across, heaven and earth collapsed, the mountains and rivers dried up, and the atmosphere shook. A part of the world was destroyed into nothingness. The 9 suns in the sky screamed violently, and the golden light flickered. Su Yu's face was calm, and his hands formed a seal. Kill! Swish! Swish! Suddenly, the 9 golden suns in the sky changed their positions, leaving countless blurred shadows in the sky. Puff! Suddenly, there was a muffled sound, followed by a painful dragon roar. A golden long sword was inserted into the body of the World Annihilation Dragon, and countless dragon breaths spewed out from the wound. Ah! And this is the golden flame's forbidden wood. This wood has clearly been destroyed by me, and it cannot survive in this world. The World Annihilation Dragon roared. Su Yu closed his eyes and manipulated the other golden sword to cross the void and kill the World Annihilation Dragon. Puff! Puff! With a muffled sound, the 9 golden flames forbidden wood swords were all inserted into the body of the World Annihilation Dragon. Su Yu frowned slightly. As expected of the World Annihilation Dragon, its body was incredibly hard. According to Su Yu's estimation, there were not many creatures in the world that could not penetrate the 9 suns sword formation forged by the golden flames forbidden wood. However, the World Annihilation Dragon, something related to the World Annihilation Dragon, was so hard. If it were any other deity, except for the top 30 Emperor-based saint artifacts, they would not even be able to hurt him. The dragon's body was pierced by the 9 golden swords, but it did not cause much damage to the World Annihilation Dragon. Instead, it became more ferocious and it roared, "Ants! Those who hurt me have never had a good ending, and you are no exception." Roar! With a roar, the dragon's body shook violently, and the raging dragon breath spewed out from its body, turning into boundless flames that covered thousands of miles. Su Yu was the target of the flames. This dragon breath was different from Su Yu's dragon breath. It was extremely pure, comparable to the World Annihilation Dragon. Su Yu stared at it and shouted, "Colorful poison pool." Su Yu clapped his hands toward the sky, and a turquoise bead emerged from the hidden void. Then, it opened abruptly. It was as if the Milky Way had fallen from the 9 heavens. Endless 7-colored liquid gushed out. The liquid was fragrant like spiritual liquid. However, when it landed on the flames of the dragon's breath, it made the dragon's breath sizzle and weaken. The dragon breath flames were soon extinguished. The rest of the spiritual liquid was poured onto the body of the World Annihilation Dragon. In an instant, its scales were corroded to the point of sizzling sounds. However, it was unable to corrode the scales, so it was unable to cause any harm. However, there were still 9 golden swords stuck in his body. The spiritual liquid poured into his body through the wounds caused by the golden swords and corroded his body from the inside. Roar! The World Annihilation Dragon let out a shrill scream, and the colorful poison could clearly be seen gradually spreading through its dark body. Ants! The World Annihilation Dragon was furious to the extreme. He thought that Su Yu had used up all his tricks, but he didn't expect that Su Yu still had more powerful tricks up his sleeve. However, these were not enough to injure or kill the World Annihilation Dragon, let alone kill it. Enduring the severe pain, the World Annihilation Dragon laughed fiercely. "I have not eaten a living creature for a long time. You are the first in hundreds of millions of years." Roar! With another roar, the dragon's roar shook the sky, and the entire ruins trembled. The endless dragon's roar shook the 9 golden swords stuck in his body one by one. The wounds left behind healed quickly. At the same time, the flames of the dragon's breath roared in his body, burning wildly. A trace of 7-colored mist flew out of his pores. He was strong enough to evaporate the venom that had entered his body. Devourer of the Divine Dragon! The World Annihilation Dragon opened his mouth, and the entire ruins shook wildly. The astonishing suction force produced swallowed the mountains and rivers into it. Crack! The earth cracked, and the land hundreds of millions of miles around cracked into thousands of miles. In an instant, it was torn apart and rolled up into the mouth of the World Annihilation Dragon. In the sanctuary, hundreds of millions of miles away, the mysterious ice shattered into countless pieces. Yongye Chushue, who had just put away the golden box, was shocked. She hurriedly retreated to resist the swallowing force. The people of the divine sect, who had just arrived at the center of the devil area, were also shocked by this swallowing force, and they all looked horrified. Many wizards were swept away by the crazy swallowing force, screaming in the air. The holy maiden's pretty face changed, and she immediately put her hands together with a solemn expression. She recited a majestic incantation, which enveloped everyone present. In this way they finally stabilized their bodies. The Grand Wizard was horrified. Holy Maiden, what kind of magical power is this? It's so terrible. The Holy Maiden's pretty face was also calm. From the aura, it is that mysterious young man in black. As for the move, this is the Divine Dragon's magical power, Devourer of the Divine Dragon. That young man in black is actually a divine dragon. The Grand Wizard was horrified. No wonder it's so terrible. This Devourer of the Divine Dragon can probably swallow the entire ruins. The Holy Maiden shook her head. No, the current Devourer of the Divine Dragon should only have less than 1% of its true power. Otherwise, it won't just be the entire ruins that will be swallowed, but a medium god. The real Devourer of the Divine Dragon is specially created to swallow a medium god. The Grand Wizard's throat seemed to be blocked by something, and he was so shocked that he couldn't speak. After a long time, he took a deep breath and said, "Then there is no need to chase him anymore. If he is also chasing that creature, we don't have to do anything." However, at this moment, the Holy Maiden's eyes suddenly narrowed. Wait, what is that? Why is there suddenly an additional aura of 100 gods? After pondering for a while, the Holy Maiden's eyes flashed. Let's go and have a look. The situation seems to be wrong. They, who were hundreds of millions of miles away, were affected so greatly, let alone Suyu, who was in the devil area. As soon as the Devourer of the Divine Dragon was performed, the 9 Suns sword formation was swallowed up. Yongye Wuhan couldn't withstand it and was sucked away in an instant. The 4 Grand Wizards who guarded the exit of the Devil area and the Grand Wizard who guarded the Mortal area, except for the Sanctuary, all the creatures and all the ruins were swallowed up in a few breaths. At this moment the scene was shocking. It didn't look like a ruin at all. It was bare everywhere, revealing the space barrier. The atmosphere, the sky, the earth, all the creatures, everything was swallowed up, leaving only the space barrier. Through the space barrier, one could even see the frozen bottom of the river outside. Above this smooth space barrier, a pitch-black dragon that was thousands of feet long was still swallowing like a bottomless pit. In front of it stood a slender figure, and behind him stood hundreds of thousands of feet high virtual shadows. It was these virtual shadows that blocked the dragon's mouth and prevented it from being swallowed. After a long time, the Divine Dragon's Devourer of the World Annihilation Dragon weakened. The World Annihilation Dragon closed its mouth, and its huge blood-red eyes widened. It stared at the hundreds of virtual shadows in disbelief. The majestic figures appeared behind Su Yu alone. It was as if all the gods were serving Su Yu as their king. In particular, one of the extremely magnificent figures made the World Annihilation Dragon cry out in horror, "The heaven-defying divine warrior! Impossible! How could a superior god possibly lower himself to become a human's godly idol?" Chapter 1355. Su Yu frowned. He was just an ordinary human creature. What was so strange about that? As for the shadows of the 9 emperors, each of them had a clear origin. It was not because of Su Yu's special identity. If one had to say that it was special, there was only one thing that was too special. The divine 9-dragon Cauldron. This was something that Su Yu still could not figure out, and he could not figure out its origin. He thought it was a very high-ranking Imperial Saint artifact until it reforged Su Yu's body and refined the fragment of the rules. Su Yu knew that the divine 9-dragon Cauldron was not an Imperial Saint artifact. No matter how powerful an Imperial Saint artifact was, It did not have the power to refine the fragment of the rules. Perhaps the 9 Emperors' shadows gathered in Su Yu's body because of the divine 9-dragon cauldron. Seeing that Su Yu did not answer, the World Annihilation Dragon said, "Since you don't answer, I will search your soul myself." Roar. Another earth-shattering dragon roar rang out. Hundreds of divine path shadows swayed again and again, flashing with indeterminate light. "Don't think that you can compete with me with 100 divine paths." The World Annihilation Dragon opened his mouth again, and a ball of destruction was brewing in his mouth. The Holy Maiden, who had just arrived, was shocked. Without saying a word, she once again cast a spell to protect herself and the others. She asked, "This is the Dragon Ball?" Her pretty face was cautious and she said solemnly, "Everyone, cast the defensive spell. Do not waver no matter what happens. Otherwise, even I can't save you." Facing this Dragon Ball, Su Yu's whole body kept trembling, and his dragon body appeared involuntarily. After the appearance of the Dragon Ball, the whole ruin burst into a cracking sound, as if it was a crystal that was about to collapse under too much pressure. The World Annihilation Dragon held the Dragon Ball in his mouth and said, "The number of Xing River overlords who died under the World Annihilation Dragon Ball is no less than the fragment of the rules. Although this is not the original Dragon Ball, its aura is enough to destroy you thousands of times. Die." The World Annihilation Dragon spat out a fiery red Dragon Ball from its mouth. Boom! Boom! The ruins trembled and cracks appeared in the space barrier, spreading throughout the ruins. A sense of crisis of destruction surged in his heart. However, at this moment, Su Yu was unusually calm. In such a critical moment of life and death, there was no change in his expression. He glanced at the Saintess and the others from afar and said indifferently, "Is everyone here?" The World Annihilation Dragon and the Holy Maiden were both surprised. Did Su Yu still have some tricks up his sleeves? "Since you are here, this relic exploration should be coming to an end," Su Yu said calmly. As he spoke, he raised his head and pointed outside the spatial barrier of the ruins. "I helped you gather everyone. Shouldn't you thank me?" The World Annihilation Dragon narrowed his eyes. "Who are you talking to?" The Holy Maiden also looked around, her eyes shining brightly. Could it be that there was an even more powerful being here? After a long silence, there was no response. The World Annihilation Dragon put away his nervousness and smiled gloomily. "Deliberately mystifying? Even if there's someone, I'm the most powerful person in this ruin." Su Yu shook his head. "First of all, this is not a relic, but an ancient tomb. Secondly, you're not the most powerful person here, he's the most powerful. Am I right, sect leader of the heaven-defying Imperial Sacred Sect?" The heaven-defying Imperial Sacred Sect had established one of the 4 great empires, the heaven-defying Empire. The Sacred Gate leader was a level 2 deity. Apart from the other 3 gate leaders, there were few who could rival him. It wasn't until he revealed his real name that a chuckle reverberated in the void. "Interesting." Swish. The silver-white light flashed, and above their heads, a middle-aged man with his arms crossed appeared. He was looking at them with a smile. There was no aura around him, and he was no different from an ordinary person. His face was dark and his eyes were deep and calm, revealing boundless sharpness. He stood in the sky without moving, but he gave everyone present an unparalleled pressure. The Holy Maiden's beautiful face changed, and she exclaimed incredulously, "Leader of the heaven-defying Imperial Sacred Sect, Nitian Gun." As the Holy Maiden of the Divine Sect, how could she not know who Nitian Gun was? Nitian Gun was different from the leader of the heaven-defying Imperial Sacred Sect of any era. Not only was his talent amazing, but he had also cultivated to level 2 in the shortest time in history. He was also a man of great talent and great ambition. The heaven-defying empire was close to the Lost Nation, but because of the dangerous environment of the Lost Nation, the heaven-defying empire had always been on the defensive for many years. It was not until Nitian became the new king that he changed from defense to offense and took the initiative to wipe out the Moonwatch sect hidden in the Lost Nation. In the war that lasted for 1,000 years, the Moonwatch sect lost 30% of its strongholds, and the casualties reached as many as 20%. Although the Moonwatch sect launched a powerful counterattack, Nitian was very good at planning and advancing step by step. Not only did the Moonwatch sect fail to regain their lost territory, but they also suffered heavy casualties. If this continued, in less than 3,000 years, the Moonwatch sect might be wiped out by Nitian. In the past, the 9 great imperial sacred sects joined forces, but they did not manage to kill the Moonwatch sect. Today, they were forced to such a point by the heaven-defying empire. All of this was the credit of Nitian. In the Moonwatch sect, Nitian was respected like the sorcerer ancestor, an existence with superior wisdom. As for the Holy Maiden, she grew up hearing Nitian's name. She knew very well how terrifying this low-key monarch of the empire was. Nitian glanced at her, and his deep eyes were filled with a gentle smile. The new Holy Maiden? In terms of talent, strength, and appearance, you are stronger than the previous Holy Maiden. Well, you can also join my harem. Hearing this, the Holy Maiden's face turned pale. The previous Holy Maiden was captured by Nitian, and her cultivation was destroyed. She was then brought into the harem, and became one of Nitian's many concubines. This matter was a great shame for the Moonwatch sect. Biting her lip, the Holy Maiden looked calm, but her heart was racing. No one expected that the heaven-defying divine warrior would come to the ruins in person. Nitian laughed and looked at Suyu with his arms folded. He glanced at the heaven-defying divine warrior's divine Laksana behind him, and his eyes shone with a deep light. Immediately, he looked at the World Annihilation Dragon. Oh, it's like the breath of the World Annihilation Dragon. Nitian looked indifferent, as if he was not surprised that the World Annihilation Dragon had reappeared. Let me see what you are. As he said this, he stretched out his right arm and grabbed the World Annihilation Dragon. The playfulness in the World Annihilation Dragon's eyes had long been replaced by anger. He did not expect that there was really a strong person. As the saying goes, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. As this palm came, the World Annihilation Dragon's face changed. He activated the Dragon Ball and blasted it at Nitian. Nitian smiled faintly, changed his palm into a fist, and directly bombarded the Dragon Ball. Bang! The deafening sound resounded through the sky, and the Dragon Ball was smashed into pieces by the punch. The destructive power that escaped from it swept around and hit the space barrier of the ruins. With a loud roar, the ruins were finally broken, and a gap of tens of millions of miles was created. Endless cold water poured in, drowning the ruins. The Dragon Ball was destroyed, and the World Annihilation Dragon let out an angry roar. You are about to break through the barrier of the gods and reach the realm of Level 1. It was rumored that the leaders of the 4 imperial sacred factions were equal in strength. However, no one knew the real situation. Because of the existence of the Moon God sect, the 4 imperial sacred factions had never fought against each other. Nitian smiled and slammed his palm down again. The World Annihilation Dragon was shocked and turned to flee. As he fled, he turned his head and opened his huge dragon mouth. Divine Dragon Devour! An earth-shattering suction force came ferociously. Nitian just smiled and pressed his palm down. He ignored the Divine Dragon Devour and pressed it on the World Annihilation Dragon. Rumble! The World Annihilation Dragon was pressed against the space barrier with one palm, and a huge gap appeared in the barrier. The dragon's body was fragmented, and its breath was spraying everywhere. It was dying. With just 2 palms, the World Annihilation Dragon was suppressed to such a state. Seeing this scene, the Holy Maiden was shocked. It was one thing to hear about Nitian's power, but it was another thing to see it with her own eyes. The World Annihilation Dragon struggled powerlessly under his palm, and he kept roaring, "Little ant, this is just an incarnation of me. Let me go immediately, or I will slaughter your bloodline in the future." Nitian Gyun still had a faint smile on his face. "World Annihilation Dragon? Even if you don't come to me, I will come to you." After that, he clenched his 5 fingers, and with a click, the World Annihilation Dragon's body was crushed into a large black flame. "You will regret this." The World Annihilation Dragon let out a roar. Nitian Gyun waved his sleeves, and the black flame dissipated, leaving only a black scale in place. The reverse scale of the World Annihilation Dragon contains the essence of the World Annihilation Dragon. No wonder it is level 3. Nitian Gyun said lightly. He sucked the scale into his palm and said calmly, "This is a good thing." However, on the way, the dragon's scale suddenly changed direction and shot towards Suyu. The will of the World Annihilation Dragon, attached to the dragon's scale, had been broken up by Nitian Gyun. The dragon's scale sensed the breath of the World Annihilation Dragon on Suyu, so of course it chose him. Nitian Gyun was dumbfounded. "It's a pity that I can't let you do as you wish. You are my trophy." However, just as he sucked in the air, a palm grabbed it. The owner of the palm was Suyu. He held it in his palm with no expression on his face, and the reverse scale returned to its original body and integrated into Suyu's body. This move was undoubtedly a provocation to Nitian Gyun. Nitian Gyun smiled. "Interesting. You are the first to snatch something from me in front of me." The Holy Maiden looked at Suyu in disbelief. Was the peerless power shown by Nitian Gyun not enough to shock him? How could he do such a thing in front of her? Suyu did not raise his head, and said in a neither humble nor arrogant manner, "What is in your hands is yours. Now it is mine." With the experience of fighting against the demonic god of 6 paths, Suyu did not panic much when facing a strong person of this level. Chapter 1356. It was impossible for Nitian Gyun to allow his ancestor to voluntarily become a junior of the divine Laksana. The moment the divine Laksana was discovered, in Nitian Gyun's heart, Suyu was labeled as dead. He turned his head, looked at the Holy Maiden, and said with a smile, "Be my concubine. I will let you and the previous Holy Maiden serve me together." The Holy Maiden blushed and gritted her teeth. "What if I say no?" "You have no right to choose. Even if the leader of the Moonwatch sect is present, he can't change my decision." As he spoke, Nitian Gyun waved his sleeves, and a halo shrouded the Holy Maiden and the 100 wizards. The Holy Maiden's face tightened, and she joined forces with the wizards to cast witchcraft. However, the ripples that were produced were all crushed by the halo. The Holy Maiden was shocked, and she crushed the jade pendant on her chest, from which a majestic wizard power rippled. The strength of the wizard power was beyond compare. The wizard power swept out, repelling the halo, and swept towards Nitian Gyun at the same time. The corners of Nitian Gyun's mouth curled up. "It seems that the leader of the Moonwatch sect attaches far more importance to you than the previous leader. He personally made the protection curse for you. However, I said that even if the leader of the Moonwatch sect is present, he can't change my decision. I want you to serve me, so you have to serve me." Nitian Gyun said lightly, waving his fist in the air. The fist was full of an unyielding will to destroy all obstacles in the world. It was the Defiance will. 7 defying fists. Invisibly, it seemed that 7 sounds rang out at the same time. The wizard curse that was attacking was inexplicably bombarded by 7 consecutive blows, all of which were shattered into smoke. When the wizard curse dissipated, the figure of the Holy Maiden was nowhere to be seen. Nitian Gyun looked up at the gap in the sky, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. "The person I want can't go away. Seal the sky." Nitian Gyun uttered the meaning of the Defiance will. This defiance will seem to look down on all things in the world, even the heavens. In the red pit, in the sky of the thousands of miles of gap, a will suddenly appeared and echoed. Bang! There was a soft sound, and it seemed that something was blocked by the will. Taking a closer look, it was the Saintess who was surrounded by an invisibility spell. Lock the ground, Nitian Guyon said again. Another majestic will descended, sealing off the surrounding area. As a result, even the gap in the ground was sealed. Trap! Another strand of will descended. The Holy Maiden, who was in the sky, was suddenly bound by this will. Not only was her sorcery power sealed, but she was also unable to move her body. She fell straight down. Nitian Guyon raised his hand and summoned him to his side. Looking at her graceful body, Nitian Guyon smiled and said, "I want you. Even if you don't want to, you have to." He killed the World Annihilation Dragon with 2 moves and captured the Holy Virgin with 3 moves. Nitian Guyon smiled lightly and finally looked at Suyu. "I left you until the end because I wanted to ask you a question. Where did the heaven-defying divine warrior's divine Laksana come from?" Of course, it was Suyu who had condensed it himself. He also had an unyielding will. Not going to answer? Then you have lost your value, and I will grant you death. Nitian Guyon had a faint smile on his face, as if he was a creator who could decide the life and death of people with a single thought. Suyu raised his eyes and said lightly, "I don't answer because there is no need to answer, especially to you. Oh, from the beginning you have overestimated yourself. I don't understand why you are qualified." Nitian Guyon chuckled, but his palm grabbed Suyu across the air. The World Annihilation Dragon was destroyed by his grasp, let alone Suyu. But at this moment, in the direction of the sanctuary, a terrible breath suddenly broke out. It was as if something sleeping had been awakened from ancient times. The barrier of the ruins shattered and turned into countless dust. The frozen river, which froze billions of mountains and rivers, suddenly set off a huge wave, sweeping away everything along the way. The snow mountain that had been pressed for thousands of years in the northern Xue nation collapsed, and the never-ending snowflakes suddenly disappeared. In the imperial city of darkness, deep in the palace, on the top of the throne, a majestic middle-aged man suddenly opened his eyes and looked surprised. This breath is the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior? His remains have been found. At the bottom of the frozen river, in the completely broken ruins. The faint smile on Nitian Guyon's face disappeared for the first time, and a trace of confusion filled his eyes. It's strange, how did he wake up so quickly? However, at this moment, a flaming bird flew across the void and went straight to Nitian Guyon. Urgent message? Nitian Guyon frowned and grabbed it. The flame was extinguished, and a large number of sparks burst out, condensing into a line of words in the air. The remains have changed and were awakened by the blood of others. I beg the master to help. After reading it, Nitian Guyon's face suddenly showed a little surprise. How is this possible? I have instilled the blood of the heaven-defying divine warrior, and also used the tomb guard spirit, the 7 poisons demonic toad, and the 9-headed devil saint as blood guides. How could I still be suppressed by someone else's blood? As a descendant of the heaven-defying divine warrior, it was easy to extract some of the divine warrior's blood. However, in this world, whose blood could be more powerful than the blood of the heaven-defying divine warrior? There was only one answer: the World Annihilation Emperor, the first emperor of heaven and earth, the World Annihilation Emperor. His blood was the only one that could suppress the blood of the heaven-defying divine warrior and refine the remains of the ice and fire divine warrior first. Who did it? Nitian Guyon's eyes were cold, and he glanced at the holy maiden and shook his head slightly. If they knew that the blood of the divine warrior could refine the remains of the ice and fire divine warrior, why would they need to dig it up? The Eternal Night Imperial Sacred Faction flashed in his mind, and he also shook his head for the same reason. Suddenly, Nitian Guyon fixed his eyes on Suyu, and his pupils gradually narrowed. He stared at his calm face and said, "It's you?" Hearing Suyu's silent answer, Nitian Guyon was even more convinced. He said, Speaking of which, you have always been very strange. You are the only one who speculated that the outside world was surrounded by the strong men of the heaven-defying empire, and the first one to speculate that I would come in person. The World Annihilation Dragon and the Holy Maiden, which one of them is not stronger than you? They did not sense it, but you did. The strangest thing is that you know that this is the ancient tomb of the ice and fire divine warrior, not some ruins. Su Yu smiled faintly. It's not strange at all. At first, I also thought that this was really a relic passed down from ancient times. I never thought that this was the tomb of the divine warrior. After all, there must be a tomb guard spirit in the tomb of the divine warrior. Su Yu said, but it was not until I went to the Saint Realm and accidentally triggered the cold air that I gradually began to speculate. In fact, the tomb guard spirits have always existed. The 7 poisons demonic toad, the legendary 9-headed demon saint, and the insects in the bodies of the lost people, they are all tomb guard spirits, but their forms are very similar to the insects. Nutian Guyun raised his eyebrows. Why do you think so? Because I have seen the breath of that cold air on a tablet, Su Yu said. He had seen the 9 Emperor tablet with his own eyes. This tablet was condensed from the flesh and blood of the 9 divine warriors, and Su Yu remembered all 9 breaths. The breath in the cold air was the breath of one of the 9 divine warriors. Combined with the lost people encountered on the way, and combined with Yongye Wuming's concealment, Su Yu finally had a guess. The so-called ruins and the so-called creation-level civilization weapons were just a smokescreen. The Empire of Darkness had been secretly excavating the tomb of the ice and fire divine warrior. What surprised Su Yu even more was that the source of the cold air in the stone wall was alive, but it was in a deep sleep. After getting all the news, Su Yu took a series of actions. He attracted the Holy Maiden and the World Annihilation Dragon, but secretly asked Yongye Chushue to send the blood of the World Annihilation Divine Warrior to nourish it and wake it up. The reason why he could speculate about the heaven-defying Divine Warrior and the danger in the outside world was very simple. They always thought that the Moonwatch sect had changed the rules of the ruins. However, the rules of the ruins contained the power of the Great Path rules. Even the descendants of the 9 divine warriors could not change it, let alone outsiders like the wizard tribe. This was an impossible thing, but it was done by someone who went against the great path of heaven and earth. This extraordinary defying intention could only be achieved by one kind of person. The descendants of the heaven-defying divine warrior, defying heaven, defying the great path, and defying all obstacles. Only people like them, who had defying intentions, could reverse the great path and forcibly change the rules. As for why the people of the Moonwatch sect found out about the changes in the rules of the ruins, if he guessed correctly, it should be Nitian Guyun's design. It would be best to attract the sect leader of the Moonwatch sect in person, so that he could be killed with the help of the remains of the ice and fire divine warrior. Even if he did not come in person, he would send important people. The Holy Maiden was undoubtedly an important person in the Moonwatch sect. Unfortunately, the arrival of Su Yu changed everything. After listening to Su Yu's explanation, Nitian Guyun stared at Su Yu with a trace of fear in his eyes. He thought that his calculations were flawless and far better than any of the descendants of the previous emperors. He even faintly felt that he could be compared to the former emperors. However, Su Yu was able to decisively and surely deduce many causes and effects from tiny clues. His meticulousness and calculation skills were something that even he had to admit he was inferior to. From Su Yu's point of view, he would never be able to do this. The Holy Maiden was also shocked. Su Yu's various statements made it impossible for anyone to believe that what he said was the truth. But in the end, all of the results proved what he had said. From the beginning, Su Yu had calculated every step of the way. Even the sect leader of the heaven-defying imperial sacred faction was within his calculations. This great wisdom, which could determine victory from hundreds of millions of miles away, deeply moved the Holy Maiden. If the Moonwatch sect had the help of such a deity, how could they be suppressed to such a state? A strange light flashed in her eyes. If she could use this person, then, unfortunately, Nichiren Gyun obviously did not intend to keep such a person alive. I admire you very much, but unfortunately, you can't be used by me, Nichiren Gyun said with a regretful expression. Suyu said lightly, don't pretend. You and I are both people with defying intentions. We are born to defy all restraints and suppression. I am a threat to you, and your defying intentions will not allow me to exist. Having been exposed, Nichiren Gyun smiled faintly. His smile was very cold. Since you know that, then go to hell. At that moment, Suyu laughed. His laughter was extremely strange. Chapter 1357. Nichiren Gyun raised his head and said with a smile, You want to kill me with the incomplete remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior? What if I join you? Right at this moment, a loud voice that shook the frozen river bottom suddenly came from afar. Nichiren Gyun's expression changed, and he said slowly, Yongye Jiyang? Swish. A dark divine light swept over this place from afar. Half of the sky was plunged into eternal darkness. From the dark world, a middle-aged man with a purple gold crown on his head walked out slowly. His eyes were so deep that it seemed the sun, the moon, and the stars were surrounded by them. His aura was like that of a king. The Holy Virgin trembled and said with a wry smile, The Emperor of the heaven-defying empire is not enough. Now the Emperor of the Empire of Darkness, Yongye Jiyang. One could imagine how gloomy she was feeling. Nichiren Gyun stared at Suyu. Yongye Jiyang must have sensed the aura of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior when Suyu woke up the remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior. Nichiren Gyun said, Yongye Jiyang, I set up an ambush here to capture the disciples of the Moonwatch sect, not the Empire of Darkness. You don't need to worry. Yongye Jiyang said coldly, Really? Since you have caught the Holy Virgin, you can leave now. Nichiren Gyun glanced at the Holy Virgin and hesitated. In order to change the restriction of the Great Path law in the ancient tomb, he had paid a much higher price than the Empire of Darkness had spent thousands of years to excavate the tomb. How could he give up now? Nichiren Gyun said seriously, You can't swallow the ancient tomb of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior all by yourself. The ancient tomb is in the territory of my empire. It is none of your business whether I can swallow it or not. Yongye Jiyang said coldly, I know you are powerful, maybe even more powerful than me. However, I still have the remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior. Nichiren Gyun smiled calmly and said, So what if I have the remains of the Emperor? The remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior have their own spirituality, which means no one can control them. In the ancient god realm, only the leaders of the 4 imperial sacred factions can control the remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior. You are wrong to expect this young man to control the remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior. What were the remains of an emperor? Even though the emperor's soul had perished, the remains still contained the emperor's divine powers when he was alive. How could such a shocking thing be controlled by just anyone? Without great strength or a special cultivation method, it was impossible to control the remains of an emperor. This was also why Nichiren Gyun had no fear when he attacked Suyu, but he was not afraid that Suyu had occupied the remains of the divine warrior. Because Suyu could not control it at all. Yongye Jiyang frowned slightly. Suddenly, his ears twitched as if someone was talking to him. He was surprised. Yongye Jiyang's expression changed a few times. Then, he calmed down and said, It's just controlling the body of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior. Wasn't that simple? I'll teach him. As he spoke, he raised his finger and shot a spot of light at Suyu, which disappeared into the space between Suyu's eyebrows. This is the secret technique of the Eternal Night lineage, the 6 fundamental laws of mind control. Only the current faction master of the Holy Gate can practice it. You meditate and comprehend it. I will block Nichiren Gyun and buy you some time. Seeing this, Nichiren Gyun was shocked. Yongye Jiryang, are you crazy? The 6 fundamental laws of mind control was created by the Eternal Night Divine Warrior himself. It is also the most powerful technique of the Eternal Night lineage. How could you teach it to an outsider? Yongye Jiryang said with a faint smile. As long as I can stop you from obtaining the remains of the Divine Warrior, I will be satisfied. A strand of anger flashed in Nitian Guyun's eyes. Then, he attacked Su Yu abruptly with his palm. Only by killing Su Yu could nobody control the remains of the Divine Warrior. In this way, Yongye Jiryang was confident that he could defeat Su Yu and take away the remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior. However, Yongye Jiryang would never let Nitian Guyun succeed. He laughed and said, "How dare you attack a junior? You are the emperor of the heaven-defying empire. Your opponent is me. Eternal Night of heaven and earth." Yongye Jiryang shouted in a low voice. Then, half of the dark sky started to roll and cover the whole sky. In the darkness, the earth-shattering sound of fighting could be heard. Nitian Guyun's palm was blocked by another force. Su Yu sat down with his legs crossed. Then, he started to refine the light spot that Yongye Jiryang had sent into the space between his eyebrows. It contained the 6 fundamental laws of mind control created by the Eternal Night Divine Warrior. The so-called heart here didn't refer to the heart of a living creature. Instead, it referred to the magic treasures with high quality and strong self-spirituality. The remains of the Divine Warrior could also be regarded as a magic treasure. After reading the function of the 6 fundamental laws of mind control, Su Yu felt it was useless. With the Milky Way star sand, he could refine any magic treasure easily. However, as he read more about it, his face was filled with surprise. After a long time, Su Yu opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with shock. Then, he murmured to himself, "No wonder it was created by the Divine Warrior. It is way too powerful." The 6 fundamental laws of mind control emphasized the word control. When fighting with an enemy, one could control the enemy's magic treasure with a single thought. When Su Yu performed the 9 Suns sword formation, his enemy used this method to control the 9 Suns sword formation. It was not a big deal for his enemy to break through the sword formation easily. However, it would be dangerous for him to kill Su Yu by surprise. According to the records of the 6 fundamental laws of mind control, no one dared to use any weapon in front of the Eternal Night Divine Warrior. Even the World Annihilation Emperor, who ranked first in the world, didn't dare to use the World Annihilation Plate when he fought with the Eternal Night Divine Warrior. Because the World Annihilation Plate was controlled by the Eternal Night Divine Warrior once, the World Annihilation Emperor was almost defeated by him. This was one of the few dangerous battles that the World Annihilation Emperor used. However, controlling the Emperor-based Saint artifact was not the limit of the 6 fundamental laws of mind control. According to the Eternal Night Divine Warrior's expectation, the ultimate goal of this skill was to control the Chain of the Great Path. In his opinion, the Chain of the Great Path was also an object with self-spirituality. If he continued to practice this skill, he would be able to control the Chain of the Great Path. Unfortunately, the Eternal Night Divine Warrior was limited by his own cultivation. He could only control the Chain of the Great Path. However, for Su Yu, even the incomplete 6 fundamental laws of mind control was still extremely powerful. Time was running out, so Su Yu didn't hesitate at all. The time around him was accelerated by 1,000 times. An hour had passed in the outside world, but Su Yu had spent a whole month in this world. In the darkness, the Eternal Night Divine Warrior shouted, "Time is limited. You don't need to study all of it. You only need to study the first chapter. There are notes left by the previous faction leaders in the first chapter. With the help of these notes, an ordinary person can understand a little bit of it in half a minute. A little bit of it is enough for you to control the remains," Nitian Guyun said anxiously. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he said with a sneer, "Yongye Jiryang, as the faction leader, You didn't practice the 6 fundamental laws of mind control yourself. Why did you give it to an outsider? Heh, heh, heh. Who knows what you are up to? Yongye Jiryang said calmly. No matter what I am up to, it is much better than your killing intent. That demon, focus on your cultivation. Don't let him disturb your mind. Nitian Guyun's eyes lit up. Then, he continued, Heh. Yongye Jiryang, I really doubt that you gave him the complete version of the 6 fundamental laws of mind control. Aren't you afraid that he will learn the complete version of the remains? At that time, you won't be able to stop him. Brother Guyun, you don't need to worry about that. Yongye Jiryang said coldly. Actually, he didn't take Nitian Guyun's words seriously. Yongye Jiryang knew how difficult it was to study the 6 fundamental laws of mind control. Even a powerful cultivator like him would need at least 1 month to study the first chapter according to the notes left by the previous faction leaders, let alone a junior cultivator. How much could this demon race brat comprehend in the time it took to brew a cup of tea? As time passed, the fight between the two parties became more and more fierce. The whole ice-sealed river was shaking crazily. Thousands of streams of water were stirred up. After half a cup of tea's time had passed, Suyu suddenly opened his eyes. A deep and chilling light shot out from the depths of his pupils. It seemed he could see through everything in the world. No one dared to look him in the eye. Then, Suyu looked in the direction of the Saint Realm. Rumble! In the Saint Realm, the abyss was broken. It seemed something that had been sleeping for a long time had been awakened. The horrible energy swept across the entire empire and spread to the other empires crazily. Exclamations came from the other 2 empires. It seemed some top powerhouses were also disturbed by the energy. Nitian Guyun changed his expression and stepped back quickly. Then, he looked at the Saint Realm seriously from afar. Yongye Jiryang laughed loudly. Finally, we made it. He glanced at Suyu, his eyes revealing an undetectable light. His face was filled with praise. Well done. Then, he turned to Nitian Guyun and asked, What do you think? Do you still want to fight with me? Nitian Guyun was annoyed. He had paid a great price to break the restriction of the rules. However, Yongye Jiryang got the upper hand. I don't believe he can control the remains to attack us. Yongye Jiryang said with a sneer. Since you doubt the magical effect of the 6 fundamental laws of mind control, you can have a try. Then, he gave an order to Suyu, control the remains to attack us with the extreme ice eye. Suyu nodded. With a shift of his thoughts, the divine warrior's remains, which were hundreds of millions of miles away, surged with an extremely cold and desolate power and shot out in an instant. Nitian Guyun's expression changed slightly. Then, he jumped up immediately. However, Yongye Jiryang also jumped up at the same time. Bastard! What are you doing? Yongye Jiryang was furious because he saw 2 streams of energy shot out at the same time. One of them was aimed at Nitian Guyun, but the other one was aimed at Suyu. Suyu said calmly, Nothing. I am just trying to save my life. Save your life? I saved your life. Yongye Jiryang shouted angrily. Suyu shook his head. The 6 fundamental laws of mind control can only be practiced by the faction masters of the Eternal Night Empire. I am an outsider. Do you know what will happen to me? Even if you are merciful and don't attack me, you will still destroy my cultivation and take away my memory. However, as a family that controls an empire, you won't be so merciful. I am more likely to be killed by you to keep the secret of the 6 fundamental laws of mind control. Hearing that, Yongye Jiryang's face darkened. Chapter 1358. Yongye Jiryang said gloomily as he stared at Suyu coldly, You are seeking death. After saying that, Yongye Jiryang was about to kill him. However, Suyu's expression was cold. The one who is seeking death is you. He formed a seal with both hands and drew a mysterious trajectory in the air. With a single glance, Yongye Jiryang was so shocked that he couldn't help but shout, Completion of the first part. It's only been half a cup of tea's time, how could you comprehend it to such an extent? Suyu did not answer. Instead, he manipulated the divine warrior's remains to unleash an even more shocking desolation power. Unlike the ice from before, this time it was a terrifying flame. Absolute fire eyes. Even Nitian Gyun's expression finally changed, and he was extremely shocked. He had thought that he had overestimated Suyu, but now he realized that he had underestimated Suyu. This kid had unknowingly controlled the Emperor's remains to such an extent. Now, even Yongye Jiryang couldn't block the extreme ice eye and the absolute fire eye at the same time, let alone him. With unwillingness in his eyes, Nitian Gyun stared at Suyu coldly. Boy, don't be complacent. You have the remains of the ice and fire divine warrior in your hands. You are destined to be the prey of the 4 great empires of the ancient god realm and even the Moonwatch sect. I have a hunch that we will meet again. After saying that, he left the frozen river without hesitation. Yongye Jiryang flew into a rage. After shouting angrily, he chose to run away as well. Nitian Gyun had paid a huge price to bring the remains of the divine warrior back to the light of day, but it was all for Suyu. Yongye Jiryang, on the other hand, gave away the 6 laws of mind control, which was created by the eternal darkness divine warrior, and was as valuable as the remains of the ice and fire divine warrior. In the entire ancient god realm, there was no one else who could make the monarchs of the 2 empires suffer such a loss, yet they had no choice but to swallow their resentment. The 2 sect masters fled one after the other, but the 2 ice and fire pillars did not stop chasing them. The light beam pierced through the frozen river. Half of the river was frozen, while the other half was engulfed in raging flames. Suyu, who was standing at the bottom of the river, raised his head to look at the marvelous sight of the fusion of ice and fire. He finally understood where the terrifying flames, which had melted the frozen river in an instant, came from. Where did the ice that froze this river all year round come from? All of this was the remains of the ice and fire divine warrior. The extreme ice eye and the absolute fire eye released their power alternately, which caused the frozen river to be unsealed once every 100 years and then fall back into the cycle of eternal freezing. After driving away the 2 monarchs, how could Suyu dare to stay here any longer? He sped towards the center of the sacred region. The crystal ball filled with flames that I saw at the beginning should be the absolute flame eyes, right? In that case, the other one buried in the abyss should be the eye of extreme frost. This might be the remains of the divine warrior of ice and fire. There are only 2 eyes left. However, when he rushed to the abyss at the center of the sacred region, there was no trace of the absolute fire eye. The other side of the abyss had also collapsed, leaving behind an incomparably huge pit. Presumably, that was where the eye of extreme ice was located. The 2 eyes disappeared without a trace. Where did he go? Suyu was bewildered. At that moment, Suyu suddenly felt something tugging at his robe. Suyu was shocked. He now had the perception of a god. What could get so close to him without him noticing? If the other party wanted to kill him, wouldn't it be a piece of cake? He turned his head and looked, but there was nothing. When he looked down, he found what was tugging at his robe. It was a chubby little boy about 3 years old. He had 2 eyes of different colors. One was fiery red. The other was ice blue. The moment he looked at the 2 eyes, Suyu's mind roared. Could this be the remains of the divine warrior? The awakened remains of the divine warrior had turned into a 3-year-old child? Activating the 6 fundamental laws of mind control, Suyu sensed the scent of the blood of the World Annihilation Emperor on him. I'm hungry, the child said pitifully with his eyes wide open. Suyu was stunned for a moment. He didn't know whether to treat him as a living creature or a weapon. His hesitation caused the child to shed 2 drops of tears, one fiery red and the other ice blue. The tears landed on the ground and burst forth with a terrible force, heading straight for Suyu. Suyu was so frightened that he hurriedly dodged away, not daring to come within 100,000 feet of him. Isn't this too dangerous? Suyu was secretly shocked. If he had eaten a little more, he would have been destroyed by the 2 drops of tears. Wiping away the cold sweat on his forehead, Suyu thought for a moment, then took out a fresh piece of golden flames forbidden wood and threw it to him. He grabbed it curiously and glanced at it, then threw it away, still yelling at Suyu that he was hungry. Seeing that he was about to cry again, Suyu was shocked. Suddenly, he took out a drop of the divine warrior's blood that had just been refined. The child immediately opened his mouth and revealed a smile. He hobbled over, grabbed the drop of blood in his palm, and then swallowed it with a happy smile on his face. Suyu looked calm. His transparent eyes swept over the body, and after a long while, he sighed silently. There was only a body, no soul. He was not a living creature, but an object with the most basic spirituality. "Come with me in the future, and you won't be hungry," Suyu said. As if he understood, the boy nodded. "I'll call you Binghua from now on," Suyu said. The little boy laughed. He seemed to like the name very much and felt very close to it. "From now on, without my permission, you are not allowed to cry, and you are not allowed to release the power in your eyes at will." With a finger in his mouth, the little boy tilted his head and nodded, as if he had understood something. Suyu had a headache. He didn't know whether it was a blessing or a disaster to have such a dangerous being around him. "I am sleepy." When Suyu was in a dilemma, he, who was full, wanted to sleep again. This was exactly what Suyu wanted. So, he freed up a space in a Buddha pearl and put the little boy into it. In this way, Suyu left the frozen river. In the battlefield, after 1 hour, the Saint Virgin, who had been left behind, finally managed to cast a spell with difficulty to break the binding will around her. Her pretty eyes lit up. Then, she came to the vicinity of the Saint Realm. After searching for a while, she was disappointed. As expected, he escaped. He mastered the remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior, obtained the great magical power of the Eternal Night Divine Warrior, mastered the essence of the Heaven-Fighting Divine Warrior's combat skills, and inherited the Emperor-based Saint artifact of the Tai-Ching Divine Warrior. I didn't expect a person could master so many things of the 9 Divine Warriors. The Saint Virgin was still shocked. That dragon might be right. What kind of creature is he? Why did he let the 9 Divine Warriors revolve around him? Also, the Saint Virgin said with longing in her eyes, "This person's wisdom is extraordinary." Even the 2 emperors of the empire played with him. Even Nitian Gyun, who prided himself on his great wisdom, was afraid of him and wanted to get rid of him. If this person could be used by the Moonwatch sect, wouldn't it be great? The Moonwatch sect desperately needed a talent who had mastered the powerful remains of the Divine Warriors and was also extremely smart. Unfortunately, with this person's alertness, he must have escaped and disappeared by now. However, this person seems to have hidden his identity. There is a divine path in disguise in his body. The Saint Virgin's senses were amazing. She murmured to herself, "Also, the aura he exuded seems a little familiar." After thinking for a moment, the Saint Virgin looked around the ruins. Except for the collapsed abyss, the whole ruins were bare except for the space rampart. The more than 100 wizards she had brought with her, as well as several grand wizards of the Saint's side, had all been swallowed by the divine dragon of the world Annihilation Dragon and disappeared. They should be in that scale. However, the scale was taken by the person who hid his identity. It seems that I have to find him. After talking to herself, the Saint Virgin left the ice-sealed river bottom and returned to the Schumann building in the Shui Nation of the Northern Territory. As soon as she entered the building, Kalen came up to her and said in surprise, "Are you injured? Where are the Grand Wizards?" Hearing this, the Saint Virgin smiled bitterly and said, "Too many things happened in the ruins. I will tell you slowly." Hearing that the remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior had been unearthed, and that even the 2 emperors of the empire had shown up, Kalen was very surprised. I didn't expect that this was a trap set by Nitian Gyun for the Moonwatch sect, Kalen said. His scheming is too terrifying. The saintess' face was filled with hatred. Plotting against us was just a side benefit. His real goal was the remains of the ice and fire divine warrior. At this point, the saintess could not help but laugh out loud. However, no matter how meticulous his calculations were, in the end, that mysterious fellow still got away with the remains of the ice and fire divine warrior. Ha ha, at least he helped us vent our anger. Kalen raised her eyebrows and said, "Are you talking about Suyu? If it's him, then it's perfectly normal." The holy maiden's expression froze. "You said that the mysterious man was Suyu? Is it the old friend you met here last time?" "Yeah," Kalen said matter-of-factly. "Although he disguised himself as a living creature with a demon beast's body, I'm sure it's him based on your description. In terms of wisdom, he is the most intelligent person I have ever seen. No one can compare to him." The Saint Virgin's innocent face was gradually replaced by surprise. "If it is really him, can you help me invite him to join the Moonwatch sect?" "He's your old friend," Kalen replied with a wry smile. "It's not that easy. He and I used to be enemies. If I try to persuade him, it will be counterproductive." "Then, we can use money to persuade him," the holy maiden said. Kalen shook her head. "According to my understanding of him, fame and money can't move him. Suyu had an endless supply of treasures. Now that he had obtained the remains of the ice and fire divine warrior, and the reverse scale that contained all the items in the ruins, there was not much that the Moonwatch sect could give him. If you really want this man's help, you can only use his emotions. That is his only weakness. Use his emotions." The holy maiden blinked her eyes. She didn't quite understand Kalen's words. At the ice-sealed river bottom, after a while, several powerful auras appeared at the same time. Yongye Jiang, Nitian Gyun, and two middle-aged men who were almost as powerful as them. "Yongye Jiang, you know this is the tomb of my ancestor, the ice and fire divine warrior. Why did you steal it?" The man was tall and sturdy. His whole body was filled with the auras of ice and fire. He was Binghua Tsangxing, the leader of the Ice and Fire Imperial Sacred Faction. Yongye Jiang said calmly, "When the 9 divine warriors died, their remains were scattered all over the world. We holy factions have an agreement that whoever finds their remains first has the right to excavate it. Why are you blaming me now?" Chapter 1359. Heh. Did we agree to inform each other? Since we didn't, the agreement is still valid. Yongye Jiang said coldly. He was already in a bad mood after being tricked by Suyu. Ha. Yongye Jiang, if you want to start a war, I will fight you to the end. Binghua Tsangxing was also irritated. Please calm down. Now is not the time to quarrel with each other. The only middle-aged woman among the 4 people said calmly. Her facial features were delicate and pretty. Even though she was already middle-aged, it was still difficult to conceal her charm. Her temperament was elegant and seemed to be floating in the air. The 2 faction leaders looked at each other and snorted. Then, they stopped arguing for the sake of this female faction leader. The female faction leader looked at Nitian Gyun and asked, "Does this man really have the yin and yang Tai Chi wings of our Tai Ching ancestor?" Nitian Gyun nodded. "Yes, he can travel hundreds of millions of miles in an instant. Only the yin and yang Tai Chi wings, the number 1 Emperor-based saint artifact, can do that." Then, Nitian Gyun looked at the beautiful woman up and down with a hint of possessiveness in his eyes. Then, he said, "Yunluan, why don't you let me handle this matter? If I can capture this man alive, I will return the yin and yang Tai Chi wings to you." Tai Chi Yunluan said with a faint smile, "Don't bother, faction leader. The yin and yang Tai Chi wings belong to our ancestors, and they are not in the hands of outsiders. The Tai Ching faction will try our best to get them back." Then, she looked at the other 2 people and said, "I guess we all have the same goal. Binghua Sangxing wanted to get the remains of the ice and fire divine warrior back. Yongye Zhiyang wanted to kill Su Yu to prevent the 6 hollow techniques from being circulated. As for Nitian Gyun, he was worried about Su Yu's scheme. If he didn't kill Su Yu, he wouldn't be satisfied. As for Taiqing Yunluan, she wanted to get the Yin and Yang Tai Chi wings back. The 4 faction leaders of the Imperial Sacred Faction reached a consensus. The 4 great empires will cover all the areas of the ancient god realm. Once this man shows up, we will set up a trap to catch him. Nitian Gyun said with a murderous look, I suggest we form a coalition army to investigate, find and kill this man. Yongye Zhiyang agreed with his suggestion. Since this man could enter the ruins, he must be somewhere nearby. He must be either a citizen of the Empire of Darkness or a citizen of the heaven-defying Empire. Nitian Gyun nodded deeply, yes. Most importantly, this man has the Emperor-based Saint artifact and many magic treasures of the Xue nation in the northern region. I suggest that we investigate his real identity from the Xue nation in the northern region first. Taiqing Yunluan and Binghua Sangxing had no objections. Su Yu had no idea that he had become a wanted man in the entire ancient god realm. Once his identity as a dragon-headed man with a human body was exposed, there would be no place for Su Yu in the vast ancient god realm. At this moment, he was hiding in an inconspicuous inn in the Snowman Tower, taking stock of his gains from this trip. First, he had obtained the blueprint of the World Annihilation Plate. Other than that, he had also obtained many ancient weapon blueprints. Second, the Tomb of the Myriad Gods. Third, the 6 laws of mind control. Fourth, the remains of the Ice and Fire Divine Warrior. Fifth, the reverse scale of the World Annihilation Dragon. His gains were far greater than his initial expectations. However, it was more troublesome than he had imagined. If I'm not wrong, I won't be able to stay in the ancient god domain any longer. I can only hide outside the ancient god domain's range. Su Yu sighed. However, there is still some time before my identity as a dragon-headed man with a human body is exposed. I'm not in a hurry to escape. Let's deal with the reverse scale of the World Annihilation Dragon first. As he spoke, a dark dragon scale appeared on Su Yu's chest. Compared with ordinary dragon scales, this scale was harder and had a deeper color. The most amazing thing was that it contained a drop of the World Annihilation Dragon's blood. Indeed, as Nitian Gyun said, this is a good thing. Su Yu estimated the hardness of this reverse scale. It might be able to easily withstand the attack of a monarch of an empire. At that time, Nitian Gyun had used a killing method, but he still failed to leave the slightest injury on the scale. Its hardness was evident. As a defensive item, it was definitely an excellent magic weapon. All of a sudden, Su Yu felt a faint space fluctuation flickering within the reverse scale. Is there a space inside the reverse scale? Su Yu was surprised. His soul explored it, and he couldn't help but be surprised. There was a whole world inside the reverse scale. All the creatures and items that were swallowed by the World Annihilation Dragon were swept into this space. The Saint Lady brought 100 wizards, 8 great wizards of the Saint. Yongye Wuheng, Yongye Chushue, and Yongye Wuming, who was left behind by Su Yu. Finally, there was a beautiful woman with an excellent figure. She was the princess of the Xue nation in the northern territory, Xue Xiaoman. All those who entered the ruins and failed to escape were sucked into this space. They were wrapped in a dragon's breath and lost consciousness. They didn't know where they were. After thinking for a while, Su Yu left the Xue Man building and came to the deserted outside world. With a thought, he opened the reverse scale. Apart from Yongye Wuming, who knew his identity, he released all the other living beings. Su Yu immediately put away the reverse scale, removed his disguise, and returned to his real body. He pretended to be unconscious and fell to the ground. After some time, there was a groan. Xue Xiaoman was the first to wake up. She stood up shakily, wrapped in a man's dress that she had taken from somewhere. She opened her beautiful eyes, looked around, and saw the unconscious people on the ground. What happened? I remember they were swallowed by something, Xue Xiaoman said in confusion. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of someone among the unconscious people. In an instant, her eyebrows were filled with anger and anger. She gritted her teeth, and her clear eyes shot out flames. It's you! Not only did he take away all her treasures, but he also pressed her under the myriad bone mountain. Xue Xiaoman would never forget this great humiliation. Pervert! This is the will of heaven! Xue Xiaoman trembled slightly, not knowing whether she was angry or pleasantly surprised. Su Yu rolled his eyes secretly. Damn it, what a coincidence that this woman woke up first! If he had known this would happen, he would have taken off her clothes and thrown her on the road. As she spoke, Xue Xiaoman rushed over angrily and clasped Su Yu's shoulder. Judging from her posture, she was ready to capture Su Yu alive and torture him slowly to vent her hatred. Su Yu was helpless. It seemed that he had to intervene. However, if he woke up first, he would have to explain why they were lying here. It would be very easy to arouse suspicion. Right at this moment, a cold light struck, piercing through the air and stabbing towards Xue Xiaoman. Xue Xiaoman was shocked. She gave up on Su Yu and leaped forward 1,000 feet in a flash. When she turned her head, her pretty face froze. Yongye Wuheng, when did you wake up? At the critical moment, Yongye Wuheng intervened. About the same time as you, Yongye Wuheng said casually. Xue Xiaoman cupped her fists. Prince Wuheng, please do me a favor and allow me to take this man back. Why? Yongye Wuheng asked. Xue Xiaoman was speechless. Could she tell him that all her treasures were taken away by this man? Then, she told him that she was stripped naked and suppressed under the myriad bone mountain? I have no comment. However, I will never do anything harmful to the empire, Xue Xiaoman said. Yongye Wuheng shook his head lightly. Sorry, I can't let you take him away. What kind of joke was this? This was his betrothed brother-in-law. So what if he robbed the emperor-based saint artifact of the Xue nation of the North Territory? It was no big deal even if he took you away. This brother-in-law of his was a dragon among men. Yongye Wuheng was one of the few people who knew that the mysterious demon who resisted the world annihilation dragon was Su Yu. Now, of course, he had to protect Su Yu. Xue Xiaoman shouted, Yongye Wuheng, don't make things difficult for me, otherwise. Yongye Wuheng's eyes turned cold. Otherwise what? But you, if you insist on taking action, don't blame me for being rude. Seeing Yongye Wuheng's seriousness, Xue Xiaoman was going crazy. She couldn't understand why Yongye Wuheng was protecting her. What good would it do for Yongye Wuheng? At this time, Yongye Chuxue also woke up slowly. Seeing this, Xue Xiaoman could only give up for the time being and leave with hatred in her heart. Before leaving, she said coldly, tell Su Yu that we are not finished. Yongye Chuxue opened her misty eyes and saw Xue Xiaoman leaving these words with shame and hatred. She asked blankly, Brother, what happened? Yongye Wuheng laughed. Nothing. By the way, help Su Yu up. What? Yongye Chuxue gave Yongye Wuheng a strange look. In the past, her brother had always been very protective of her and never allowed any man to get close to her. This time, he asked her to help a man, which really confused her. What are you waiting for? Go and infuse your divine power into him to treat his injuries. Yongye Chuxue was confused, but she still did as she was told. After treating his injuries, she found that Su Yu's body was full of injuries, which made Yongye Chuxue murmur, It's so strange. I didn't see him after entering the ruins, but when he came back, he was injured all over. Humph. Yongye Wuheng smiled and said nothing. He thought to himself, Sister, those injuries were caused by the battle with the World Annihilation Dragon. Although he didn't know what happened after he was swallowed by the dragon's mouth, Su Yu was still alive, which was enough to show that he had survived the divine dragon devour with his own strength. Thinking of this, Yongye Wuheng was even more amazed. He was only a stage 4 mortal fairy, but he already had such terrible strength. What would happen when he became a god in the future? This person's potential is unimaginable if he is trained by the royal family of Yongye. If my sister has such a husband as your brother, I can rest assured, Yongye Wuheng thought to himself. During the healing process, the people in the coma gradually woke up, including Su Yu. Hundreds of wizards also woke up one after another. In view of the special circumstances at the moment, both sides did not fight, waiting for their people to wake up. After a long time, both sides woke up. Obviously, the wizards were not in the mood to fight with them here. First, they had a level 5 deity like Yongye Wuheng among them. Second, they were in the territory of the ancient god realm, where strong masters could come at any time. Third, they had lost contact with the Holy Maiden. Let's go. Under the leadership of the Grand Wizard, 100 wizards quickly retreated and disappeared into the snow. The creatures of the ancient god realm breathed a sigh of relief and left, leaving only Yongye Chushue and Su Yu. Chapter 1360. Su Yu considered his own situation. It was a wise choice to leave the ancient god realm as soon as possible. Going to the lost nation to hide was not necessarily a bad choice. Of course I have no problem, but has Princess Chushue changed her mind? Yongye Chushue thought that with such a drastic change, she needed to make some preparations. Unexpectedly, Yongye Wuheng agreed immediately. Of course, no problem. I'll leave my sister to Brother Su. Yongye Chushue raised her eyebrows and stared at her brother suspiciously. Su Yu said, "All right, but due to certain reasons, I can't return to the Empire to fulfill the promised Emperor-based Saint artifact. I wonder if, no problem." Yongye Wuheng agreed without hesitation. Brother Su, which Emperor-based Saint artifact do you want? Su Yu was a little overwhelmed by Yongye Wuheng's enthusiastic attitude. He wondered if there was a conspiracy behind this. He could not help but probe. The Great Desolate Furnace ranked 45th. Well said. I'll personally go back to Dynasty and get it. Yongye Wuheng laughed. I will give this to my sister. As long as the escort mission is completed, she will give it to you on the spot. Yongye Chushue opened her mouth and looked at her brother in disbelief. How could her calm brother do something so irrational? What if Su Yu had evil intentions along the way? How could she have known that her brother was actually hoping that Su Yu would have evil intentions in the middle of the journey and punish his sister? Even Su Yu was surprised. He had a strange feeling in his heart. What was Yongye Wuheng up to? Brother Su, it will take at least a month for me to go and come back. During this month, please take care of my sister. After saying that, Yongye Wuheng immediately left, as if he didn't want to stay any longer. Su Yu and Yongye Chushue were left looking at each other in dismay. Yongye Chushue stared at Su Yu with her beautiful eyes and asked in a charming voice, "What did you offer my brother? It's the first time I've seen him treat someone with such warmth." Su Yu shrugged. "I was going to ask you, did your brother take the wrong medicine?" In his memory, Yongye Wuheng was a very profound man. Yongye Chushue frowned and shouted, "Don't speak ill of my brother. His brain is just damaged." Su Yu was speechless. Mystic Crystal Mountain Range. In the depths of the fissure, there was a gigantic pitch-black dragon coiled on the huge stone door. The moment the reverse scale was broken, it suddenly opened its huge dragon eyes. A terrifying dragon breath naturally leaked out and swept towards the outside of the crack, as if it wanted to burn the whole world. The 9 Emperor tablet trembled as words of the heavenly book floated out and pressed down, blocking the ferocious dragon breath. Behind the stone door, the suppressed woman seemed to sense something and said indifferently, "You failed, right?" She knew that the World Annihilation Dragon was not willing to give up, so he turned his reverse scale into a doppelganger to chase after her. The World Annihilation Dragon said coldly, "This man is too cunning and good at scheming. He attracted the descendant of the heaven-defying divine warrior and crushed me. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape. A defeat is a defeat, just like how our defeat is the suppression of millions and millions of years. There is no need to explain. The woman said indifferently. The world annihilation dragon spat out his dragon breath unwillingly and finally calmed down. His huge dragon eyes were filled with a trace of light. However, I found something interesting on this trip. This person seems to be very special. Not only does he have a familiar aura, but I also see the shadow of that person in him. Back then, it was also him who used the superior deity as the divine Laksana and shocked the ancient god Void. You mean the genius who betrayed the temple of heaven? The world annihilation dragon nodded his huge dragon head, and ancient memories seemed to reverberate in his eyes. I remember that he was the oldest book deity in the world. It's him? The voice of the woman in the door revealed a trace of surprise, and then immediately became regretful. It's a pity that he should have become the messenger of the heavenly law, but he had to rebel against the Path Master and steal the Book of First Heavens. The world annihilation dragon sighed. Yes, he should have been one of us, but unfortunately, he made the worst decision. After a long time, the woman in the door said, "Since we have found his aura, when we come out, we will capture him and hand him over to the Path Master." Suyu, who had no idea what was going on, accompanied Yongye Chushue to the capital of the Shui Nation in the Northern Territory. The Lost Nation is very dangerous. Apart from the Moonwatch sect, there are also strange creatures that have never been seen in the ancient god realm. I need to collect some special materials, Yongye Chushue explained. The Lost Nation was the original territory of this world. In the words of the ancient god realm, the Lost Nation was the indigenous land. Suyu said placidly, "Whatever. Just don't let me run into the royal family of the Shui Nation in the Northern Territory." Yongye Chushue said disapprovingly, "He just killed Shui Qingchen. What was so great about it? The imperial family of the Shui Nation in the northern region has many talents. Shui Qingchen is dispensable. Don't worry, the imperial family won't do anything to you because of Shui Qingchen. As for Shui Xiaoman," Yongye Chushue said suspiciously, "I don't think you just killed her brother." Suyu felt guilty under her gaze, so he changed the topic as if nothing had happened. "Where are we going now?" "Go to the liaison department I've set up here. Just leave the procurement to them." Soon, they arrived at a prosperous area in the capital, where there was a shop named Tiannu. As soon as they entered the shop, a young man came out to greet them. "Greetings, Princess Chushue." This man, who was a level 5 deity, was very powerful. Considering his age, he was a rare genius. Yongye Chushue had sent him here to take charge of this shop. Apparently, she thought highly of him. "Get up. Prepare a table of dishes and these things." Yongye Chushue handed him a jade pendant, which contained information about the things she needed to prepare. The young man took the jade pendant and glanced at it. Then, he said with a confident smile, "Princess, don't worry. These are the specialties of the Shui Nation in the Northern Territory. I've prepared them for you for a long time. I'll bring them to you right away. Please have a look." Then, he looked at Suyu, who was standing beside Yongye Chushue, and asked hesitantly, "Princess, may I ask how many servings you have prepared?" Yongye Chushue looked at Suyu and said to herself, "My royal brother values this man for a reason. I'd better be polite to him." "Servings for 2 people. What?" The young man raised his eyebrows slightly. When he looked at Suyu again, there was a hint of doubt in his eyes. Yongye Chushue rarely got along with men. Even the important members of the royal family of the other 3 imperial sacred factions rarely had the opportunity to get close to her. However, the identity of the young man in front of him was unknown. Moreover, Yongye Chushue had taken a liking to him, which made him feel indignant. He could not help but cast a questioning look at Suyu. Suyu smiled and disdained to argue with him. Then, he entered the box side by side with Yongye Chushue. "Is this man reliable?" Su Yu asked after entering the box. Yongye Chushua looked at him strangely. You mean Hua Chen? Did you find anything wrong with him? No, it's just that I'm more sensitive to hostility, Su Yu said. Yongye Chushua said indifferently, it's normal for him to be hostile to you. What you and I are doing now can attract hostility from anywhere in the Empire. As one of the most outstanding young talents of the Empire of Darkness, Yonghe Chushua not only had amazing talent, but also a gorgeous appearance. She was pursued by countless people, so it was normal for Su Yu to be regarded with hostility. Su Yu touched his nose and said solemnly, what I'm talking about is another kind of hostility, the kind with killing intent. Su Yu wasn't speaking without thinking. Instead, when the youth revealed a doubtful expression, another wave of hostile murderous intent flashed past him. Su Yu caught it secretly, but it disappeared without a trace. Even now, Su Yu still felt as if he was being stared at by something. Yongye Chushua blushed and glared at him. Then, she calmed down and carefully sensed the surroundings. After a long time, she shook her head seriously. If there is such hostility, it's impossible for me not to feel it. You are overthinking, aren't you? Su Yu smiled, and there was a glimmer of light in the depths of his eyes. Su Yu had only experienced this kind of feeling of being stared at in secret, but he couldn't figure it out. That was in the Imperial City of Darkness. He was followed by a black shadow, but Su Yu couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he tried. Soon after, Su Yu was ambushed by the Yiksha king. Now, this feeling appeared again, which really surprised Su Yu. Taisheng. Who is that? Su Yu murmured. Before the Yiksha king died, he had said this name. After a pause, Su Yu tentatively asked, Princess Chushua, in the Empire of Darkness, is there a person named Taisheng? This person should be very prominent. Hearing this, Yongye Chushua thought about it carefully and shook her head. No. If there is such a prominent person, I can't not know about him. Su Yu couldn't help but frown deeply when he found that she was not lying. Who was the so-called Taisheng? Dong. Dong. Right at this moment, a chaotic sound came from outside the private room. Several powerful auras rushed out of the private room. Vaguely, Hua Chen's angry roar could be heard. The people outside were aggressive, as if they had come with bad intentions. Only Yongye Chushua was calm. She just felt a little headache. Here comes a troublesome person. Bang! All of a sudden, the door of the private room was kicked to pieces, and a burly, boorish man dressed in a long robe embroidered with dragons stormed in with 4 god-level attendants. This man was not only strong, but also very strong. He had reached the peak of the level 5 deity level, and was about to break through to the level 4 deity level. As soon as he entered the door, he laughed loudly. Sister Chushua, you came to the Shui Kingdom without telling me. Look, as soon as I heard you were here, I put down what I was doing and came here immediately. As he said this, he sat next to Yongye Chushua. His eyes were full of infatuation and his behavior was very presumptuous. Yongye Chushua frowned. Shuizhongbao, please be respectful. I didn't invite you in. Shuizhongbao laughed. You are right. Those who should not come in should get out. After saying that, he punched Su Yu without warning. The punch was wrapped with very pure divine energy. It seemed like a casual punch, but it contained half of Shuizhongbao's strength. Without knowing Su Yu's real strength, this punch was definitely a fatal blow to a stage 4 mortal fairy. Sister Chushua asked you to get out of here. Get out of here. Shuizhongbao looked at Su Yu coldly. His eyes were wide open like the eyes of a cheetah. Chapter 1361. Su Yu was calm and collected. He held the wine glass with one hand and took a sip. Even though he was hit by the fist energy, he remained motionless. Chi. Su Yu's body was suddenly covered by a layer of ice-blue dreamy luster. Like a sponge, it absorbed the seemingly strong fist energy completely. Ice-blue divine armor? You are Shangguan Feiyu's man. Although Shuizhongbao was rude, He knew the origin of Su Yu's defense at a glance. Well, if you can take this blow, I will admit that you are qualified to stay. It was obvious that the Shui nation of the North Territory didn't take Shangguan Feiyu seriously. He pulled out a meteor hammer from his back, emitting a chilling aura. This is made of the 10,000-year-old black ice from the bottom of the ice-sealed river. If a level 6 deity is hit by it, he will lose a layer of skin. If you can take this blow, you can stay. If you can't, get out of here. Shui Zhongbao stared at Su Yu overbearingly. At this time, Yongye Chushue was finally annoyed. She slammed the table with her delicate hand and shouted, "How dare you!" Her shout shocked the 4 deities. They didn't even dare to breathe. Yongye Chushue stared at Shui Zhongbao angrily. "Do you still have any respect for me?" He came uninvited, knocked open the door of the box, and attacked her people without saying a word. Did he still have any respect for her identity as a princess? Shui Zhongbao put on a fake smile. "Princess, please calm down. I just think this guy is not a good guy. He is probably up to no good. So, I have to get rid of this big trouble for you." Then, Shui Zhongbao said to himself, "Princess, please calm down. I, Shui Zhongbao, will get rid of this overconfident lecher for you." After saying that, he waved the dangerous meteor hammer in his hand and said with a cold smile, "Are you ready? It's up to you whether you can take this blow or not." Su Yu looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. "That's weird. Why do I have to take this blow from you? Isn't it more direct to kick you out?" "Ha ha ha!" Shui Zhongbao laughed. "I give you a blow to show you your strength. Okay, take this blow." With a flick of his wrist, the meteor hammer turned into a streak of cold light and flew out. They were so close to each other, and Su Yu's cultivation level was much lower than his opponent's. How could it be easy for him to resist? However, Su Yu was sitting steadily. His upper body did not move at all, but his right hand, which was under the table, was secretly forming a seal. A wave of mysterious and profound energy swept across the area. A shocking scene occurred. The meteor hammer in Shui Zhongbao's hand suddenly went out of control and smashed towards himself. And fast, ruthless, and accurate, Shui Zhongbao was caught off guard. How could he guard against his own weapon? In an instant, more than half of his head was smashed, and blood splattered everywhere. "Your Highness!" The 4 attendants were shocked and hurried over to support the heavily injured Shui Zhongbao. Even with such an injury, Shui Zhongbao's body did not die. Instead, waves of cold air gushed out from his blood vessels, healing his wounds quickly. Not long after, his broken head was restored to its original state. However, the impact of the strike just now on Shui Zhongbao was self-evident. Although his body had recovered, his aura was much weaker. Did you do this?" Shui Zhongbao was stunned. Finally, he fixed his eyes on Su Yu and questioned him with uncertainty. Su Yu shrugged and said, "Prince Shui's martial arts are superb. Before you hurt your enemy, you hurt yourself 10 times first. Such a ruthless move, if it hits your enemy, it must be earth-shattering, right?" Yongye Chushue, who had a cold look on her face, could not help but burst into laughter. However, she was also curious about the strange situation just now. The meteor hammer was Shui Zhongbao's famous weapon. There was no way that it could have been used wrongly. There must be something wrong. She stared at Su Yu with her beautiful eyes without blinking. Her intuition told her that it was Su Yu. Shui Zhongbao was greatly humiliated. He was furious, but he did not dare to use the meteor hammer again. After staring at Su Yu for a while and committing his appearance to memory, Shui Zhongbao shook off the attendants who were supporting him and shouted in a low voice, "Let's go." The moment he walked out of the box with his head lowered, a fierce light flashed in the depths of his eyes. Thud! Thud! Hua Chen ran all the way in panic and knelt in front of the box. "I failed to protect you. Please forgive me, Your Highness." Yongye Chushue said, "Forget it. Shui Zhongbao has been arrogant for a long time. He even looked down on my brother. It is reasonable that you could not stop him." Hearing this, Hua Chen breathed a sigh of relief, but he felt very strange. Shui Zhongbao was such a powerful guy, but it seemed that he had suffered a great loss before he left. Who could be so powerful? He looked up at Su Yu with disdain and ignored him. In the end, he still thought that it was Yongye Chushue who did it. After all, she was a member of the royal family. It was normal for her to have one or two powerful treasures to deter the enemy. "Have you prepared all the materials I asked you to?" Hua Chen hurriedly took out a cosmos sack and handed it over respectfully. Yongye Chushue glanced at it, and her indifferent face showed a touch of joy. "Oh? An 80-year-old soul-stabilizing wood? You really put in a lot of effort." "Soul-stabilizing wood?" Su Yu cast a questioning look at her. Yongye Chushue waved her hand, and Hua Chen stepped back. Before he left, he glanced at Su Yu vaguely, feeling indignant. What was so special about this man that Princess Chushue treated him like this? She waved her hand casually to set up an isolation seal. Yongye Chushue said, "The soul-stabilizing wood is a divine wood that can counter the sorcery of the Moonwatch sect. With this wood, it can counteract the sorcery power." Su Yu had witnessed how tricky sorcery power could be. They were both at level 5, but Shui Xiaoman's magical powers could not resist the sorcery of the Grand Wizard. If she had not sacrificed the peacock plume at the last moment, she would have fallen into the hands of the Moonwatch sect. Most of the magical powers of the ancient god realm were ineffective against sorcery power. If there was no way to deal with it, the people of the ancient god realm would be at a disadvantage when facing the wizards. Soul-stabilizing wood is one of the few divine woods that can restrain sorcery power. It was born in the Lost Nation and is naturally resistant to sorcery power. "The older it is, the stronger its resistance will be," Yongye Chushue said. "This 80-year-old soul-stabilizing wood can help us a lot." Su Yu was surprised. "It is just an 80-year-old divine wood. You are the princess of the empire, so it is possible for you to find 800-year-old or even 8,000-year-old divine wood, right?" Yongye Chushue rolled her beautiful eyes. "Do you think soul-stabilizing wood can grow everywhere? It can only grow in the environment of the Lost Nation, and its lifespan is only 90 years. It will wither after 1 year. The Lost Nation is very dangerous. Strange beasts run amok, and many of them feed on the soul-stabilizing wood. Wood that is more than 50 years old is usually guarded by powerful beasts. And this is not including the elusive Moonwatch sect. Pharmacists who collect the soul-stabilizing would have a very high death rate, and the amount of soul-stabilizing wood they can collect is very rare. An 80-year-old one like this is a rare treasure that can only be found once in hundreds of years." Hearing this, Su Yu was deep in thought. "Do you have the seeds of the soul-stabilizing wood?" Yongye Chushue was surprised for a moment. Then, she thought Su Yu was not convinced and wanted to plant it himself. She shook her head and laughed. "Well, I don't have the seeds, but I have 2 roots. I will give them to you." She took out 2 earthy yellow roots from her Qiankuan bag, and they did not look very attractive. Su Yu saw that they were extraordinary and said in surprise, "What? It seems that they can devour souls." Yongye Chushue was surprised and stared at Su Yu strangely. Only the soul-stabilizing wood that was more than 80 years old could absorb souls. However, only the soul perception of deities or above could detect this difference. How did Su Yu know this? Just now, he didn't even know what the soul-stabilizing wood was. "My brother values this person so much, and it is not unreasonable," Yongye Chushue said to herself. After putting away the 2 roots, Su Yu said thoughtfully, "Now that we have got the materials we want, I think we'd better leave as soon as possible." Yongye Chushue frowned. "Does the secret surveillance still exist?" Su Yu said, "Yes, but I want to leave. I want to guard against the Shui Nation of the North Territory. This is not a place to stay for a long time." Although Yongye Chushue had some complaints about this, she did not want to meet Shui Zhongbao again. So, she nodded and said, "Okay." After cleaning up, Su Yu and Yongye Chushue went downstairs. Unexpectedly, before they went out, a group of young people walked in from outside the hall. All of them were full of chilly energy, with powerful auras and pure bloodlines. Among them, Su Yu was even familiar with one of them. Yongye Chushue was also surprised. She looked around at the crowd and said, "The princes and princesses of the Shui nation have come." The people present were all the princes and princesses of the Shui nation of the North Territory. Among them was Shui Zhongbao, who had just left, and a beautiful woman with cold eyes, Shui Xiaoman. However, Shui Xiaoman was not the leader. Standing at the very front, the one with the noblest temperament was actually a level 4 prince. He was just over 30 years old. Even so, the talent he showed was amazing and terrible, enough to compete with Yongye Wuheng. He was wearing a feather robe and had an elegant temperament. He said with a smile, "I heard that the princess is coming, so I came to see you." Yongye Chushue sneered secretly. The Shui nation of the North Territory was no longer loyal to the Empire. The Empire was well aware of their secret dealings with the heaven-defying Empire. Usually, when she came here, she did not receive the treatment of so many princes and princesses. Now that they had come here, it was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. "There is no need for me to see you. I am tired and have to go back to the Empire. I will not accompany you. If there is anything in the store that you value, I will give you a discount," Yongye Chushue said calmly. Hua Chen served them well. After saying that, she walked out of the store with light step. "He he." The elegant young man stretched out his arm and blocked Yongye Chushue's way. He said with a faint smile, "If the Princess Chushue leaves like this, it will be seen as a disgrace to the Empire." Yongye Chushue's eyes turned cold. "Get out of my way," the elegant young man said calmly, as if he would never get angry. "Princess, please give us some face. We will hold a banquet in the woods of drunken immortals for you." "I am not interested," Yongye Chushue said coldly. The scholarly youth was still smiling faintly, but the smile had disappeared. "If Princess Chushue insists on not agreeing, my royal brothers and sisters will not agree." Hearing the threat in his words, the cold light in Yongye Chushue's eyes intensified. However, as the daughter of the emperor, she was not short of scheming. Their enemies outnumbered them, and they were in their territory. If they had a face-to-face conflict, they would be at a disadvantage. "Since Prince Yun insists, I will enjoy the banquet with you," Yongye Chushue said. Prince Yun said with a smile, "Thank you, Princess. We will meet in the woods of drunken immortals tomorrow night. We will await your arrival." With that, Prince Yun left with the other princes and princesses. "Brother Yun, you are the best. You have subdued that woman," Shui Zhongbao said flatteringly. The smile on Prince Yun's face disappeared, replaced by a gloomy expression. "Humph! How dare she come to the Snow Kingdom after killing Shui Qingchen? Does she really think the Empire is still the same as before?" Hearing this, the princes either sneered or looked at him expectantly. "Prepare the banquet well tomorrow. We must let the princess know that even if she dies here, the Empire will not dare to do anything to us," Prince Yun said with a gloomy expression. Chapter 1362. Prince Yun smiled sinisterly. "Of course you can. Not only you, but the rest of you can also have a taste of Princess Chushue if you are interested. After all, she is the most beautiful princess of the Empire." The princes swallowed hard as their eyes burned with fire. The mere thought of Princess Chushue's beauty and identity made their hearts pound. Shui Xiaoman frowned slightly. As a woman herself, she was disgusted by the idea of dealing with a woman in such a manner. However, she dared not refute after glancing at Prince Yun. "Brother Yun, I only ask that Su Yu be handed over to me." Prince Yun nodded nonchalantly and said, "Sure. However, you must treat him well and let him know the consequences of taking something from the Shui nation of the North Territory." Shui Xiaoman nodded. "That's exactly what I was thinking," However, Xue Xiaoman's hatred for Su Yu was far greater for stripping her of her clothes than for taking away her weapon. The latter was due to her inferior strength, so she could not blame anyone else. The former, however, was a deliberate humiliation. Prince Yun nodded with a sinister smile. The Xue nation of the North Territory has been a subject for nearly 1,000,000 years. Father has finally decided to join the heaven-defying empire. The opportunity to break away will begin at the banquet at the Woods of Drunken Immortals tomorrow. We will use Princess Chushue's blood as a sacrifice to the birth of the Xue nation of the North Territory. The Xue nation of the North Territory was going to rebel. The Xue nation of the North Territory is going to rebel, Su Yu said softly after a long pause in the shop. Surprisingly, Yongye Chushue did not refute him. The truth was right before her eyes. The princes had openly threatened her and even sent several level 5 deities to besiege the Tiannu firm afterward. What else could it be if not rebellion? After a long while, Yongye Chushue said, "The banquet will not end well. I have a bad feeling about tomorrow night's banquet at the Woods of Drunken Immortals." Su Yu smiled. "It's more than bad. I think you won't be able to return." Glancing at her beautiful face and figure, Su Yu said meaningfully, "I don't know how I will die, but I'm afraid it will be difficult for you, Princess." Upon hearing that, Princess Yongye shuddered. Her reputation was well known. If the Xue nation of the North Territory really rebelled, she could easily imagine what would happen to her. "If you want to leave, I can send you off," Su Yu said calmly. Even if there were a large number of experts surrounding them, with the Tai Chi Yin-Yang wings, even the emperors of the 4 great empires would not be able to stop them. "Why should I go?" Unexpectedly, Yongye Chushue, who looked weak, had a resolute look on her face. "I'm the princess of the empire. Why should I lower my head to a bunch of traitors?" Yongye Chushue's eyes flashed fiercely. "I'm not only going to the Woods of Drunken Immortals, but I'm also going there with great fanfare." Su Yu's eyes lit up, and his eyes were filled with praise. "Ha ha ha, well said. If you run away now, I'll really look down on you. Don't worry, I will go with you tomorrow. If they want to see blood, I will let them see a grand bloodbath." Su Yu smiled coldly and dangerously. Yongye Chushue said grumpily, "It's good enough that you can protect yourself. How dare you talk nonsense?" Su Yu smiled and returned to the house that had been arranged for him. He began to speculate about the thoughts of the king of the Xue nation in the Northern Territory. It seems that the rebellion of the 99 tribes in the South region finally made the Xue nation of the North region pay attention to the rebellion, Su Yu thought to himself. The rebellion of the South region was triggered by a mysterious tomb guard spirit. He is not simple at all. The rebellion of the North region must have something to do with Nitiangyun. I'm afraid it will be difficult to put out the flames of war between the 2 rebellions in the North and the South. At least, it will take more than a day. How can the West and East regions be stable if the rebellion continues for a long time? Even if the Empire of Ice and Fire and the Empire of Tai Qing don't interfere, it is hard to guarantee that the forces of the East and West regions won't have their own armies, Su Yu murmured. The situation of the Empire of Darkness is precarious, and it is very likely that it will fall apart. After some speculation, Su Yu seemed to have seen the scene of the Empire of Darkness falling apart, and finally, the 3 great empires joined forces to destroy Yongye Zhiyang. However, this had nothing to do with Su Yu, and he would not help the Empire of Darkness. After all, Yongye Zhiyang was determined to kill Su Yu. The internal strife of the ancient god realm is imminent. The lost nation is the safest place. I have to go this time. Su Yu finally made up his mind to go to the lost nation. Su Yu calmed himself down and took out the reverse scale. Yongye Wuming was the only creature left in the space of the reverse scale. The rest of the creatures were inexhaustible resources. Su Yu moved all of them to the world of the martial arts tower. Wow, haha, so many resources. Boy, are you robbing people again? The black Kylan popped its head out, its eyes shining like a miser. Suyu rolled his eyes. Sort of, wait. Suddenly, the black Kylan was startled, and its face changed dramatically. This is not the Star River. Yes, it is the Lost God Realm, which is the battlefield of the 9 Emperors, Suyu said calmly, but he was observing the black Kylan's expression. Sure enough, when the black Kylan heard the words, 9 Emperors, a complicated expression flashed across its face. There was a hint of pity and sadness. However, these expressions flashed by quickly and were well hidden. It said, "Boy, you are so lucky to have found the Lost God Realm. This place is more prosperous than the Star River. You should cherish it. If there is a great opportunity, you may get unexpected gains, such as an Emperor-based Saint artifact." Gains? Suyu touched his chin. The Emperor-based Saint artifacts that were ranked at the bottom were no longer of interest to him. After saying that, the black Kylan retracted its head. The black Kylan is indeed related to the 9 Emperors. Suyu had been guessing the identity of this Kylan, but he did not expect it to be related to the 9 Emperors. Among the 9 Emperors, there was an Emperor, the Kylan Divine Warrior. He did not know if the Black Kylan and the Kylan Divine Warrior were related. Suyu looked at the reverse scale again and transferred the remaining Yongya Wuming into the Buddha bead. Holding the reverse scale in his hand, Suyu gently pressed it against his chest. A sense of flesh and blood surged, and the reverse scale sank into Suyu's chest obediently without any resistance. A drop of the world annihilation dragon blood hidden in the reverse scale melted into Suyu's body bit by bit. Suyu only felt that his body was gradually filled with a majestic and unimaginable power, which was frantically transforming his body and making it stronger and stronger. Clenching his fists, a power that even Suyu himself found terrifying reverberated between his fists. Hiss, with this punch, a level 6 deity would be smashed into pieces, wouldn't it? Even a level 5 deity would lose a layer of skin even if he did not die. Suyu's face lit up with joy. This kind of improvement in strength was quite exaggerated, jumping to a whole new level. At this moment, in terms of physical strength, Suyu should be at the level of a level 5 deity. If he encountered Shuizhongbao again, he could completely compete with him with his physical strength alone. Amidst his joy, Suyu looked inside his abdomen. The 2 celestial spirits were constantly nourished and had now strengthened to the level of a late-stage prospective deity. Even so, Suyu still showed no signs of breaking through to the level of a deity. Ever since he had cultivated several kinds of divine paths, there had been no signs of becoming a deity, which made Suyu feel quite helpless. According to ordinary people, when the divine paths were cultivated to the extreme, divine tribulations would appear naturally. At this time, the divine paths would be ignited and the divine tribulations would be broken through to become a prospective deity. However, Suyu was very special. Before his divine paths were ignited, the celestial spirits had already appeared, and he had already qualified to become a prospective deity. Moreover, as Suyu's divine paths increased, there was no sign of the divine tribulations appearing. If he did not ignite his divine paths, Suyu could not become a deity. Faintly, Suyu felt as if some kind of will was suppressing him from becoming a deity. Thinking of the many divine tribulations that had appeared during the ordeals, Suyu frowned deeply. Could it be that will causing trouble again? Thinking of this, Suyu's eyes were filled with indignation. That enormous will had been targeting Suyu since the beginning of his cultivation, and it was still preventing Suyu from becoming a deity today. I have even survived the divine tribulations, so how can it stop me from becoming a deity? Suyu's eyes shone brightly, and he said coldly, "You can suppress a divine path cultivated to the extreme, and you can suppress 100, but what about 1,000 or 10,000 divine paths?" Suyu had the remains of 10,000 deities in his hands, and with the help of the fragments of the rules, it was not a problem to comprehend the divine paths of the deities. "Fine. If you want to fight, then I will fight you to the end." Suyu snorted coldly, and immediately began to comprehend the divine paths left in the remains of 10,000 deities. Boom! A sudden clap of thunder came from the clear sky, and a white, misty lightning, hundreds of feet thick, fell directly on the Tiannu firm, smashing a 1,000-year-old ancient tree in the yard. Su Yu sneered. I guessed right, it was you who caused trouble. The more he objected, the more Su Yu wanted to go against it. Closing his eyes, Su Yu quickly fell into meditation, comprehending the divine paths of the deities. The next evening, the setting sun shone on the evening glow. Su Yu slowly opened his eyes from his meditation, and the power of time around him dissipated like water. A touch of exhaustion and enlightenment flickered in Su Yu's eyes at the same time. The divine paths of 10 more deities, Su Yu said to himself. As long as Su Yu was given enough time, comprehending 10,000 divine paths would not be a problem. At this time, Su Yu sensed someone approaching from the outside world, and he opened the door. It was Yongye Chushue who was waiting outside. There was also a touch of exhaustion in her eyes. Obviously, she had been secretly preparing for the banquet in the woods of drunken immortals. It's time to go. Yongye Chushue's expression was cold, and her eyes were filled with cold light. Su Yu nodded and rushed to the woods of drunken immortals with her. The strong men of the Shui Empire who surrounded them followed them secretly and kept sending messages, reporting their location, lest they escape. The woods of drunken immortals was a small island in the lake, a leisure place dedicated to the royal family of the Shui Empire. Usually, it only received distinguished guests and was rarely opened. Now, in order to receive a distinguished guest like Yongye Chushue, it was specially opened, which showed how grand it was. For this, the royal family of the Shui Empire spread the news everywhere, making the trip of the princess known to the whole city. Su Yu and Princess Yongye came to the side of the lake. From afar, they could see many members of the royal family on the island, but no one came to meet them. Yongye Chushue was not angry at the deliberate neglect, because it was all within her expectations. However, neither Yongye Chushue nor Su Yu flew over.